In 5th place, we have Skinny Bob. Yes, I'm aware this is a controversial series of videos, but I truly believe that there's enough to believe to prove the validity of the clips. A very curious video showed up on YouTube in 2011, showing a collection of leaked videos that allegedly shows an alien being interrogated by some sort of government agency, possibly the KGB. If I go missing tomorrow, y'all know why now. An alien that looks like a typical gray-type entity is shown being interviewed and examined, supposedly as part of some sort of diplomatic exchange. The creature is described as being from the Zeta Reticuli, star system, sent as part of an envoy to discuss matters of mutual concern. According to the videos, the aliens would be escorted by special officers and only meet with high-ranking officials. Pretty formal. Although several aliens are claimed to have been present, the one most prominently featured has been given the nickname Skinny Bob. The alien appears as a very thin, slouched-over figure with an oversized bald head, slit-like mouth, large eyes that seem expressive and blank, and claw-like hands. There was apparently a whole series of interviews conducted with the creature between 1942 and 1969, although only a few clips have managed to get leaked out. The most well-known clip simply shows Skinny Bob sitting at a table, apparently in a telepathic interview, after which we see footage of the alien from head to toe, showing its disproportionately long arms and overall build. After that, there is a shot of it within a pool of some sort of liquid where it would supposedly sleep. I guess that's where we got the idea for a waterbed. According to the videos, the aliens were often filmed without their knowledge or agreement, with document 072/E supposedly describing an incident in 1961 where 3 of the beings realized they were being secretly filmed by a hidden device, which was considered a violation of their agreement. Now, I don't know about you, but I wouldn't want to cross an alien. There was a treaty that stipulated that photographs and filming of the entities would not be allowed unless specific permission was given. While these 2 clips are the most well-known and widely available, there were allegedly other clips that have since been taken down, such as that of the alien spacecraft and another of an autopsy being performed on a dead specimen at the base. Look, I will admit there have been many assumptions that this footage was faked, but let's review the evidence here. The budget to pull off this sort of high-quality costuming and filming would have been over like $250,000 alone, and no one's claimed responsibility or tried to monetize the footage in any way. Now, this was in 2011 and now it's 2023. It's been a minute. If this was like a tie-in to a horror movie, somebody would have claimed it by now. Many CGI experts and those in the movie industry have studied the footage and most agree that if it is a fake, it is the work of a studio with a big budget. And as somebody who has worked on big budget movies, no studio is wasting that kind of cash for a hoax. In 4th place, we have a Glimmery Alien from Florida. Oh, before I forget, from this point on, all stories are from the mouths of former astronauts, who happen to be some of the most credible witnesses of UFOs and alien life out there. They're literally trained in spacecraft identification and screened for mental stability and vision perfection. Take that, skeptics. In October of 2014, former space traveler Adam Maloney was walking his dog in the Pembroke Pines, Florida neighborhood, and came around a curve in the sidewalk and, street. He noticed something unusual and stopped walking, staring at it, trying to figure out exactly what he was seeing. Now, his dog seemed more annoyed that Adam had just stopped. The dog refused to move or bark. I get it. Adam described seeing a figure around 30 feet from his spot in the area between the sidewalk and street. Not facing him, though. It was like skeletal thin, bony, around 6 feet tall with white or light grayish skin, no hair, and something bluish near the ear. He knew immediately it wasn't human when the creature sensed Adam staring, looked over its right shoulder, directly at him, and then looked down at the puppy. Then it suddenly started to run into the middle of the street and then down the next street into the next block. Its knees were apparently backwards, which I'm trying to picture right now, and that is so weird. As it ran, it began to gradually fade, like the edges were only part of what Adam could see. It was glimmering and fading until he just couldn't see it anymore. He never saw it again, but I wonder. In 3rd place, we have the tales of Edgar Mitchell. Edgar was an Apollo astronaut who passed away in 2018 at the age of 85, and he had many theories about aliens that he often shared with the public. He believed aliens are real and UFOs from extraterrestrials have visited us before, publicly stating that he thought there was a cover-up involving aliens and their visits to Earth. As the 6th man to walk on the moon and a NASA astronaut, his theories and beliefs were among the most credible of UFO believers. Not only was Edgar an astronaut, but he was also a test pilot for the Navy, had an MS in aeronautical engineering, and was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 1970. Take that for credibility. Part of his belief in alien life stemmed from experience he had returning to Earth from the moon, where he felt more connected with the universe than he had ever been before. Edgar has said publicly that he's 90% sure that many of the unidentified flying objects recorded since the 1940s belong to aliens from other planets. When he started speaking out in the 1990s, he said he was only then coming out with his knowledge because he didn't want to be labeled a UFO crank, and stood by his beliefs no matter how much he was criticized. And honestly, that's pretty credible, seeing as anyone who spoke before that, especially to do with Roswell, not a good reputation. In an interview in 1996, Edgar said that there were alien bodies at Roswell, but the government covered it up. In 1998, he called on Washington, D.C. to acknowledge publicly what it knew about alien life. He said he had witnesses he knew personally from intelligence agencies and the military who convinced him that the US government had been covering up UFOs for 50 years, including evidence from Roswell. In 2008, he was interviewed and spoke about how the Roswell crash was real and aliens had contacted humans multiple times. Interestingly enough, Edgar's beliefs were in line with those of Philip James Corso, who was chief of U.S. counterintelligence corporations in Rome in the 1940s and chief of the Pentagon's Foreign Technology Desk in the 1960s. He even wrote a book, The Day After Roswell, where he said that he moved alien artifacts from the Roswell crash, which were later reverse engineered to develop some of our more advanced technology. In an interview in 1996, Edgar said he had met with officials from 3 other countries who had personal encounters with aliens from other planets, not just secondhand information. The evidence of alien contact was strong and classified, including that extraterrestrials were giving technology to the US government. Hi, Canadian here. Can we get some of that too? In 2004, Edgar said that the government was studying alien bodies, but stopped sharing that information with presidents after John F. Kennedy. During a radio interview, he said that aliens were far more advanced than us, and we would have been gone a long time ago if they were hostile. Well, a witness doesn't really get much more credible than Edgar. In second place, we have a Canadian sighting. A former astronaut who would like to remain anonymous was glancing outdoors one day at the unfinished sunroom attached to his bedroom, which he described as having windows that were about 3 to 4 feet off the ground, wrapped around the room, providing a good view of the backyard of the home. Exactly what you want in a sunroom, honestly. He saw the bust of what people described as a mantid, describing it as a confusing sight, similar to an action figure. This being had a large muscular body with a head that was insect-like, with eyes that wrapped around its head, and its face ended in a point similar to that of a beak. The view he had was of its head slightly turned with the body facing him. The eyes were rounded near the front of the face and wrapped to the back and ended in a sharp point, protruding slightly, but not like a mantis, and were very black, similar to Vanta Black. The alien was around 5 feet in height, so not, super tall, so shorter than me. The suit he was wearing was black and shiny, with an indented texture, almost plastic looking, with a large round collar. The body looked approximately human, but the musculature was more rounded and not as defined, making it look more exaggerated and like a toy or a muscle suit. The head was dark with some orange tint on it near the back and a greenish tint near the beak. After a few seconds of eye contact, the window burst outwards and our narrator looked away for a split second, during which the entity disappeared. That same summer, most of those windows in that sunroom slowly burst, which is also really weird. As time went on, he became obsessed and terrified of gray alien, describing symptoms of extreme pareidolia, seeing big black eyes in almost everything and feeling terrified. In first place, we have a communion alien. Former space traveler Kevin Daniels grew up by the woods and at the age of around 6 years old had a terrifying experience. One afternoon, while playing in his backyard with his brother, he began hearing a very hard knocking sound coming from the side of the house. He looked at the house and saw nothing, and his brother continued playing. The sound hit the house again, and once again he looked and saw nothing. This horrendous sound hit the house for a third time, but this time Kevin felt the instinct to turn his head to the left, facing the garage by the woods. This is when he spotted a gray creature standing partly behind a tree right in front of the garage. He's described it as having an upside-down onion head with large slanted eyes, a small mouth, and nose. It then telepathically communicated directly into Kevin's head, but in a demonic-sounding voice. His brother noticed something was wrong with him and asked Kevin, what was wrong, but Kevin couldn't speak. He couldn't even get his legs to move, describing the fear like nothing he had ever experienced in his life. The alien began laughing demonically in his head, and he described it as deafening. When Kevin was finally able to scream and partially run, almost falling, he ran for the front door of the house, encountering his mother, who came running, obviously concerned, asking what was wrong. Kevin was crying hysterically and screaming, realizing that whatever this thing was, it was pure evil. His parents tried asking his brother what had happened, but the brother had no idea. Kevin described to his parents what he had seen and what had happened and begged them not to look. But the parents decided to, rightfully go out and investigate the tree in the garage area, finding nothing. Many years later, Kevin came across a book that had the exact picture of the gray alien on it, called Communion. After looking through the contents of the book, he knew then that others had seen the same creature he had, and that it was real, and not just a figment of his imagination, or heat stroke, or anything like that.
Number 5. Gordon Cooper. Major Gordon Cooper was an astronaut and flying ace of considerable renown, with more than a few accolades to his name. Being the first man to spend a full 24 hours in space solo, and the last American to ever spend a solo orbit around the planet altogether. Besides these lofty accomplishments, he was also very vocal about his belief and insistence of life beyond the stars. He'd experienced many strange things over his career. First, when he was an Air Force pilot in 1951, he says on a routine flight over West Germany, he encountered 3 flying metallic saucers following his plane. The incident was reported and nothing was done. But this would be far from the last strange encounter Cooper would have. In 1963, after orbiting the planet, Cooper was returning home when he noticed a glowing green orb following his capsule, which he described as ethereal. The object was picked up by a radar tracking station in Australia. But most bizarre about all of this is that when Major Cooper touched down and returned home, reporters from NBC told him they were explicitly barred from asking any questions about the unidentified object he'd experienced. Beyond bizarre, isn't it? Cooper outright says he believes higher-ups covered it up, saying on record that in the USA every day our radar instruments capture objects of form and composition unknown to us. And there are thousands of witness reports and a quantity of documents to prove this, but nobody wants to make them public. Why? Because authority is afraid that people may think up God knows what kind of horrible invaders. We have to avoid panic by all means. Now, the implication in his words seem pretty direct, that he thinks the government covers it up because they think we can't handle it. I think we're ready. I mean, after the last couple years, I don't think there's any weirdness you can really throw at us. And if you're looking for great weirdness and great horror content every day, well, I can hook you up with that. All you gotta do is subscribe. Number 4, Ryan Graves. Now, for most of us, seeing a UFO would probably be the highlight of our life, or at the very least our week. But for Lieutenant Ryan Graves, a 10-year Navy veteran, seeing a UFO became a routine. On an interview with CBS on their 60 Minutes, Lieutenant Graves said that he saw UFOs every single day for years. He recounts his first encounter, where he was stunned, saying he saw a mysterious flying object trailing around him, with no markings on it, no exhaust plume, no trail of any kind. He described it as a flying black cube that appeared to have a sphere located inside of it. The pilots in Graves' squadron would report seeing these mysterious cubes constantly during their training exercise, even coming dangerously close to crashing into them and causing them to be labeled a threat. Graves said initially they were skeptical about them being alien craft, which is reasonable, and that his men had been assuming they were highly advanced drones being tested clandestinely. But as time goes on, Graves changed his tune, instead advocating for the discussion to be had about UFOs and if there's more to know out there. He wants to centralize the conversation around UFOs not being an outlandish conspiracy theory, but more of a security concern. But are they really, even? I mean, surely if there was alien life capable of provoking a conflict, they would have done it by now, right? Or perhaps these crafts were just scouts, or something else entirely. All I want to know is the truth. Number 3, Cosmonaut Konic. When you leave the atmosphere, you should expect to see some things you can't explain. I mean, it's up in space. Well, for Vladimir Konic, he was in orbit in the summer of 1978. He saw something that would alter his perception of reality forever. He claimed that he saw some floating entity following around the space station, reporting a glowing green ethereal orb, exactly like what Major Gordon Cooper claims to have seen following his capsule. Much like Major Cooper, that wouldn't be the only supernatural extraterrestrial experience Konic experienced. In 1981, on another voyage through the stars, he saw something unimaginable. He claims that he saw something floating around, resembling a barbell. He said that it was transparent, but that it looked like it had a body inside of it. It did something that is very difficult for me to describe in the point of view of physics. He describes the entity exploding magnificently, combusting an array of golden light, which he described as beautiful. After the explosions, there was a cloud of white smoke and a small sphere, but as they continued orbiting, the smoke and sphere vanished entirely. He goes on to say that he doesn't think whatever he saw was artificial, and that it must have been biological in some way, that it moved in a way that intoned life of some kind. Konic was surprised that his fellow cosmonauts did not seem willing to entertain the possibility of it being life from outside the planet, outright dismissing his claims. He's been quoted saying, "Many cosmonauts have seen phenomena which are far beyond the experiences of Earthmen. For 10 years, I never spoke on such things." When he returned home, there were brief investigations that possibly what Konic saw was little more than a missile test. And after these brief investigations, the case and the sighting was dropped entirely. Number 2, Hack Planet. Now, it's frustrating, I'm sure, to think that there could be answers for the unexplained out there, and no one is willing to share them with us out of fear we'd react badly. For one man, for one Gary McKinnon, this unknowing was simply too much to bear, and he decided to get the answers the only way he knew how, the easy way, hacking directly into NASA's servers to get at their data. Why would he do that? Why would he risk his whole life and career for this? For the truth, directly. From McKinnon's own mouth, he said, I knew that governments suppressed anti-gravity UFO-related technologies, free energy, or what they call zero-point energy. This sort of thing should not be kept hidden from the public when pensioners can't pay their fuel bills. So did he find anything worth risking his freedom for? Well, according to Mr. McKinnon, yes he did. He claims to have found something called the Disclosure Project, a 400-page document outlining testimonials from all kinds of government agents reporting their sightings and findings on unexplained objects. Fantastically too, Mr. McKinnon claims that he got a hold of a document entitled Non-Terrestrial Officers, listing the names of NASA officers who were to be transferred to new ships. However, McKinnon stated that he could not find the name of any of these ships existing anywhere elsewhere. McKinnon, as well, presumably incredibly satisfied with his findings, vandalized one of NASA's websites, leaving behind a message saying, "Your security is crap, by the way." Utterly hilarious, but it did come back to bite him, as the White Hat hacker was swiftly arrested and was to be extradited to the United States to stand trial there. Now, the 56-year-old managed to avoid extradition. He still lives in the United Kingdom today, but he's definitely going to want to avoid visiting the US anytime soon, as I sincerely doubt they've forgotten about that little bit of vandalism. Number 1, the UAP Report. Well, it's hard-pressed to find any more clear-cut proof that the US government has been researching aerial phenomena and UFOs than the US government outright admitting they've been researching UFOs and aliens for years and releasing all of the documents about it, kind of quietly sliding it underneath the door. Now, the actual idea of the report sounds significantly more exciting than it actually is, sadly. It's still very, 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 very cool, don't get me wrong. But the Pentagon's UAP report isn't quite the smoking ray gun we would hope it is. It doesn't outright blatantly confirm anything. It doesn't point to one flying saucer with a big red circle and say, "Hey, this is an alien. We know this is an alien. We asked for its name. It came from St. Helos and it comes in peace." Instead, the report highlights the hundreds of documented official reports of strange occurrences pilots and other government agents have seen in their service. The report confirms it's something we're looking at. It's done wonders to legitimize the talk around UFOs. First and foremost, to change the nomenclature from UFO, unidentified flying object, to UAP, unidentified aerial phenomena, including the possibility of non-technological flying things. The report focuses primarily on whether or not repeated sightings of mysterious crafts are a threat or dangerous, which is a bit reductive, I think. Why do we have to assume aliens are a threat to us? Now, this isn't the first time the government has put direct resources into researching the possibility of alien life. Most famously, probably, is Project Blue Book, a CIA task force that ran from 1952 to 1959. But this is the first time an agency has been so outright forthcoming about sharing their findings with the public, renewing interest in UFO and UAPs. It's a very, very strong path forward to legitimate discussions, finding, and who knows what else.
In 5th place, we have an alien body. Yep, kicking today off with a corpse, go figure. Did y'all expect anything less? This tale takes place in Russia, and while I don't exactly recommend physically trying to travel there right now for, reasons, we shall take this trip virtually. Eugenia Popova, a Petrovdastuk, I tried. City, first reported in 2011 that she had been keeping a frozen alien body in a refrigerator for a couple of years. You know, casually. I have so many questions. Like, did she keep it next to her food? Was it kept in a spare fridge? Did it smell, and what did it smell of? Allegedly, she found it next to her summer house, so I guess we can assume it was a fridge that wasn't used as much. On the original day that she discovered the body, Eugenia claimed that she was disturbed by a terrible noise that shook her from her sleep, describing it as deafening, screeching, and overpowering. She rushed outdoors and came across the boiling hot alien remains lying next to metal fragments. The creature was between 40 to 50 centimeters long, had a big head, mouth, and orbits, and was wearing a one-piece garment of some sort. Now, 2 days after going public with her story, Eugenia was visited by some people who confiscated the body for the purpose of investigation and, according to their words, took it to the Karelian Research Center of the Russian Academy of Sciences. However, employees of the research center who were interviewed later said they had never heard of this discovery. I'm sensing an all too familiar government cover-up here. How about you folks at home? Honestly, if the photos weren't as convincing as they are, I probably wouldn't have included it in today's list, but I just couldn't tear my eyes away from how strange it looks. Like, what do you think it looks like? Let me know in the comments. In fourth place, we have a tale from Wendy's. Now, while I'm not accusing the creators of the Frosty of having alien knowledge, one of their Colorado locations happens to be the setting for our next encounter. Back in 1987, 16-year-old Jake Wells and his family were on a family trip to Texas from Washington and decided to stop at this fateful Wendy's for lunch, where Jake and his sister quickly grabbed a table for themselves to, escape the adults in the car and opted to people watch while they waited for their mom to grab food. Yeah, my brother and I probably would have done the same thing. Their table was approximately 3 feet away from two adults that appeared to be in their 40s or 50s. Jake and his sister Marissa immediately noticed weird vibes from this group, so they focused their observations on this family unit. The woman had long brown hair, was wearing a knee-length light tan trench coat, even though it was around 85 degrees out and in August. For those of us like myself who prefer their temperature in Celsius, that's around 29 degrees. Way too sticky icky for my liking, even if I was wearing like a sundress, never mind a full leather coat. The man of the unit looked kind of plain, with short brown hair, no facial hair, and had on glasses that were way too big for his face. The kid was weirdly dressed in clothes that were not typical for the 80s, and had short, light brown hair. All three of them looked like they had never seen sunlight, being extremely pale with pale lips. Okay, I'm pale, I'm not an alien. Also, the trio had large, mesmerizing brown eyes. Even though our narrator admits to really staring, the group never looked at him or his sister directly. In the middle of the family's table sat 7 or 8 hamburgers, untouched, in their wrappers, along with 5 large fries and no drinks. The family was simply sitting there, staring at the food as if it made 0 sense to them. Jake's mom eventually dropped off food for Jake and his sister, which they rapidly dug into, and after 10 minutes had passed, and the family still hadn't touched their, pile. Eventually, the mom of the group said, "Do as they do. Unwrap the items and put it in your mouth. Blend in." At this point, Jake assumed they were possibly from another country, but the woman spoke perfect English without any sort of accent. Immediately after the command, all 3 members of the unit, at the exact same time, with precise matching mannerisms, began to unwrap a corner of a hamburger, but suddenly stopped mid-unwrap and acted like they were hearing something that Jake and his sister did not hear. Heads tilted, in unison, and paused for a few seconds. The woman said, clear as day, "We must go. The mothership is here. We must go now. We cannot miss it." Jake frantically looked around to see if anyone else was witnessing these events, with no success. Only him and his sister. He frantically signaled to his mom for help and rushed outside, dragging her by the arm as he explained his observations. They spotted the trio going around the back of the building and followed them, only to have them disappear completely once Jake and his mom rounded the corner. They searched everywhere, but to no avail. This event has bothered Jake in the back of his mind ever since, which is pretty fair. That's a lot of food and money to waste. And while I know a lot of magicians, that kind of disappearing act is genuinely impossible by human standards. In the middle of the pack, we have the original Roswell evidence. Yes, I know, I reference it all the time, but it's truly one of the best examples of alien proof that cannot be debunked as easily as some of the other older claims or more modern claims that have already been debunked. Rancher W.W. Mac Brazel had found wreckage on his property in Lincoln County, New Mexico. So, a little bit north of Roswell, sometime between the middle of June and early July, describing it as rubber strips, tinfoil, and thick paper. Now, this ranch had no phone, no radio, so Mac was completely unaware of the ongoing flying saucer craze, so he just gathered the debris and, pushed it under some brush, just wanted to kind of forget about it and goodbye. This wasn't the first instance of the flying disc spotting in the region, with several stories already being reported to the press that year. On July 5th, Mac drove into the nearby town of Corona, where he heard stories of silvery flying discs, and 2 days later, on July 7th, made the decision to unearth the wreckage and bring it to the sheriff's office in Roswell. The sheriff called in the Roswell Army Airfield, which assigned the matter to Major Jesse Marcel. Mac brought Major Marcel back to the debris site, and the two gathered up more pieces of rubber and tinfoil, with the Major taking the materials home. On July 8th, Public Information Officer for the Roswell Army, Walter Hott, issued a press release stating that personnel from the field's 509th Operations Group had recovered a flying disc near Roswell. On that same day, Major Marcel took the material to his base commander, Colonel William Blanchard, who reported the findings to General Roger Ramey at Fort Worth Army Airfield, WAF for short. General Ramey ordered the material be flown to Fort Worth immediately, leaving Marcel to board a crazy flight. As soon as Marcel brought the material to General Ramey's office, both Ramey and his chief of staff, Colonel Thomas Dubose, identified the material as pieces of a weather balloon kite. The weather officer on duty explained to reporters that ray wind devices were used at about 80 weather stations across the country. The balloons were attached to a 6-pointed reflective device that looked like a silver star. After launch, the balloon would expand with increasing altitude before bursting at around 60,000 feet, with pieces dispersing in their fall to the ground. After the initial newspaper reports of 1947, the Roswell incident faded from public attention for more than 30 years until the late 1970s, which brings us to February of 1978, when UFO researcher Stanton Friedman interviewed Major Marcel, whose statements contradicted those that he made to the press in 1947, saying that, they wanted some comments from him, but he wasn't at liberty to do that, so he could just keep his mouth shut. And General Ramey is the one who discussed, everything to the newspapers, the newsman, what it was, and to just forget about it. It's nothing more than a weather observation balloon. Of course, they both knew differently. While he didn't elaborate on that statement, he did deny the popular theories at the time of any bodies being found near the debris. Dang. After United States congressional inquiries, the General Accounting Office launched an inquiry and directed the Office of the United States Secretary of the Air Force to conduct an internal investigation. A report released in 1994 concluded that the material recovered in 1947 was likely, keyword here, debris from Project Mogul, a military surveillance program employing high-altitude balloons and classified portions of an unclassified New York University project by atmospheric researchers. A scholarly consensus emerged concluding that the military had decided to conceal the true purpose of the crash device, allegedly nuclear test monitoring, and instead inform the public that the crash was of a weather balloon. The balloon had allegedly been launched from the Alamogordo Army Airfield a month earlier, carrying a radar reflector and classified Project Mogul sensors for experimental monitoring of Soviet nuclear testing. The Air Force reports were dismissed by UFO experts as being either disinformation or simply implausible, and I'm tempted to agree with them. What was going on? I'm pretty sure this was real. In second place, we have a car and UFO crash from Minnesota. While on patrol outside the small community of Stephen, Minnesota, at around 2 a.m. on August 27th of 1979, Officer Val Johnson noticed a bright object hovering above the road and decided to investigate a little closer. My common sense would usually tell me that that means time for bed, but you do you, pal. The UFO suddenly rocketed straight at his patrol car, killing the engine. The last thing Val remembered was light all around him and the sound of glass shattering. When he woke up, the strange object was gone, and he was blind and bruised, but able to radio for help. Fellow policemen soon arrived and found Johnson's 1977 Ford in a heck of a state. The windshield was splintered and smashed, there were dents in the hood, and both a headlight and the roof beacon were wrecked. The car's 2 radio antennae were bent, respectively at 45 and 90-degree angles. Val also stated that the car's clock and his wristwatch both stopped for 14 minutes and that he had been blacked out for 39 minutes. The doctor who attended to him described his sight injury as similar to welder burns, caused by extreme exposure to UV light. Thankfully, he eventually recovered his vision, and the patrol car, with the original damage intact, now stands in a museum in the Minnesota town of Warren. In first place, we have a videotape from Puerto Rico. We're traveling a little more forward in time from the last 2 tales, up to the year 1997, which happens to be the year I was born. Many visitors to the El Yunque rainforest, located in the eastern region of the island, have experienced encounters with UFOs and apparent alien creatures at the site. An interesting fact pertaining to the encounters is the fact that music, especially flute music, seems to attract the mysterious creatures in the forest. And that flute music seems to have been what caused the encounter of a very strange-looking creature with several young men in the area known as La Coca Waterfall in December of 1997. The group of guys included Benjamin Loreno, Danny Quinones, and 2 other buddies who had gone up to the sector where the La Coca Waterfall is located on Highway 191. They parked their car on the side of the road, and Benjamin took out a portable camcorder he had brought with him from the car. Their intention was to experience a UFO sighting and capture video evidence. As they were interested in the UFO matter, and the forest was a place where many UFO-related events had occurred. Late at night, they decided to meditate, and Danny began to play a flute, casually. Sounds like a lot of my musical theater fronts. Moments later, all of them heard something heavy fall to the ground from the high branches of a tree behind them. Looking at the group of trees from where the sound came from, they all saw a strange-looking creature that was trying to hide itself behind a tree and the undergrowth on the spot. On instinct, they all immediately ran to where the creature was, and Benjamin turned the camcorder on and began to film what was happening, helped by the light from the camera's lamp. He pointed the camera to where the creature was, and took video for several seconds, after which the creature ran away and was lost in the brush in the dark of the night. Excited, they examined the recording, and sure enough, the image of the mysterious figure appeared in the video. Depicted in it was an extremely thin, weird creature around 4 feet tall, with a gray-green hue skin that looked oily, humid, sort of shiny looking. And then even though everything happened really quickly, it could be seen that the creature had long, thin arms and that it walked on 2 legs. Quickly, it jumped from behind the undergrowth to the left side of the image on the camera, where it hid behind the trunk of a tree, but at the same time it looked out from behind said tree to observe the humans. One could see that the head of the creature was semi-triangular in shape, wide above and thin below, and that it had two very large dark eyes that were slanted and elongated upwards. At one point, perhaps due to the dim light from the camera's lamp disturbing its vision, the creature opened and closed its eyes, and that's when one could see that it seemed to have two different sets of membrane-looking eyelids, one that opened and closed sideways, and another that opened and closed up and down. Moments later, the creature disappeared quickly, running through the dense vegetation at the site. The video has since been shown to several veterinarians and biologists in Puerto Rico, and none of them could identify what type of animal species the creature in the image could belong to.
Coming up first on this list of alien abductions today is going to be Antonio Vesbas. I probably pronouncing that wrong, I'm gonna be honest, should have looked it up before. A Brazilian man who became infamous in 1957 when his alleged story of an alien encounter rocked our understanding of this world. According to his account, he was working on his family's farm near São Francisco de Sales when he observed a bright red object in the night sky. As this object approached, Boas claimed it changed color to orange and then landed on the ground. He described it as looking like a metallic egg-shaped craft with rotating lights on top. Reportedly, 4 small beings emerged from the craft. Humanoid, grayish blue skin, the classic like little gray alien that you always see. These beings took him aboard their craft, they took samples of his DNA, and also, if you believe what he said, they said that they had a mate with one of their more attractive female humanoid aliens. After a beautiful night, Boas claimed that he was released and watched as the craft took off and disappeared into the night sky. He reported experiencing physical symptoms afterwards, including nausea and weakness. Now, initially, Boas would keep this to himself. It's embarrassing to tell your friends you kissed an alien, I guess. Eventually, though, he would share his story in 1958, contacting a journalist and gaining widespread attention from media all over, all the way up to top 5 scary YouTube videos. And if you're looking for way more stories about alien abduction, like I just said, top 5 scary is kind of the name in that. Click on through, we have got videos on every subject you could possibly think up that's creepy and crawly. So hit subscribe, make sure to hit that bell as well so you don't miss a single scream, but if you would be so kind, do that at the end of this video because I got 4 more stories of alien abductions coming up for you right now. Number 4, Yafit Kado. Yafit Kado is an American actor. He's most known for Live and Let Die, but he is far more famously known as Parker in Ridley Scott's 1978 masterpiece Alien. Perhaps then that it's a bit ironic, or it's perfectly fitting, that he has been encountering aliens since he was young. Kado believes in aliens, alongside seeing aliens, and has even claimed to have made direct physical contact and held an alien. Speaking out for the first time ever about this in 2017, Kado told Vice News about his experiences. He said it began in his youth when he was staying home one day looking out at the streets of the Bronx, New York, watching people play stickball. He turned around and there was a humanoid figure that stood 5 or 6 feet tall with an elongated head which disappeared. Pretty sad, because Kado would spend a lot of his life pursued by aliens with elongated heads on board the USS Nostromo. He claimed that over the next 50 years he was continuously monitored. He described one scenario where coming home and then going into his garage to meditate, he saw something shining ethereally bright. He says that there were things flying over his house, wouldn't call them aircrafts, but entities. He said that every time he would move to a new house, there would be a ring of smoke that would be present when he moved in. Now, the most outlandish claim was that while visiting the Philippines, Kado claims he saw a UFO the size of Yankee Stadium flying over an office he was staying at following that same circle of smoke. Now, there's not really any recordings or sightings of a gigantic UFO in the Philippines around this time, so kinda have to wonder. Now, Kado claims to have an IQ of 196 and describes himself as being mentally stable. Who isn't? And was wary to talk about any of his paranormal experiences for fear that people would dismiss him for his connection to the Alien movies. So what do you think, my fair viewers? Is it too much of a cosmic coincidence? Or was it perhaps destiny that an actor famous for being tangled with aliens was pursued by them in real life? Maybe he was just getting really into the role, doing that like Jared Leto method acting research and thought that to play a guy hunted by aliens, he should be hunted by aliens in real life. Number 3, Linda Napalitano. Linda Napalitano, also known as Linda Cortile, is a woman who claims that she was abducted by aliens in New York City in 1989. Even aliens can't resist the allure of the Big Apple. Gotta come check out Lady Liberty. Her story has become one of the most famous, but also controversial alleged alien abduction stories. Now, according to how Miss Napalitano tells it, she was asleep in her 12th floor apartment in Manhattan when she was suddenly awoken by a very blinding bright light. She claimed then that she saw 3 small beings with big pale gray skin and large black eyes that levitated her out of her bedroom window and into a waiting nearby UFO up above. She described these beings as very humanoid and looking about 4 feet tall, another example of those classic little gray aliens like we mentioned in the first point. Napalitano reported that she was taken to a room on the craft where she was examined by these beings. She said that she was taken to a council room where she saw several humanoid-esque beings who were running the thing, sort of administrative, seemed like a captain or commander type. Napalitano claimed that these beings communicated with her telepathically, and they told her that they were from a far, far, far off planet called Serpo, and were conducting experiments on humans to understand our physiology as we were a bit new to them. Okay then, it's completely reasonable, no cause for any alarm. Take a couple fingernails, take some spit, take some hair, take whatever you need. Now, Napalitano's alleged abduction got her quite a lot of attention because it's a fantastical story and a wild depiction of an abduction, and her story was featured in major news outlets and even a book detailing what happened. Now, obviously there is some skepticism if Napalitano is just telling a tall story to get a little attention, but over the years she has maintained that what happened to her was the good and honest truth, and has since become a fairly notable figure in the UFO communities sharing her story. Number 2, Bisa Kipriyanovich. Bisa Kipriyanovich is a Russian man who gained attention due to his claimed extraordinary abilities and also his alleged memories of his past life on Mars when he was a Martian. Born on January 11th, 1996 in Volsky, Russia, Bisa started attracting media attention from a fairly early age. According to Bisa, he began speaking very shortly after his birth. Babies don't usually do that. He displayed exceptional intelligence and knowledge beyond his years, claiming that they stemmed from his previous life when he lived on Mars. And he shared details about his Martian life, its civilization, and its advanced technology. According to Bisa, if you were expecting the Martians, you're out of luck because they've already come and gone, claiming that the Martians were a highly advanced society that was devastated by a cataclysmic event thousands of years ago and have since been wiped out. He claimed that Martians possessed a deep understanding of spiritual concepts, had far longer lifespans than humans, and had technology infinitely more advanced than ours. They probably also have some pretty cool movies. It makes sense then that Elon Musk wants us to get back out there so bad. Come check out some of the wreckage of their cool society. While some people found Bisa's story intriguing and considered it evidence of reincarnation or extraterrestrial contact, others remain, I think, a little healthily skeptical. For one thing, I didn't know you could reincarnate from like a different planet. I thought you had to reincarnate on the same planet, but I guess not. It's definitely fantastical, and until we can actually get up to the surface of Mars, it's going to be pretty difficult to confirm or deny if there really was a society that existed there previously. Now, it should also be noted that as the years have gone on, Bisa has spoken out less and less about his past life as a Martian prince, and there have been a lot fewer updates on him overall, which definitely lends a teeny tiny bit of skepticism. It does make you wonder if maybe the whole story was just a young person making something up, which I've never heard of something like that happening, so I don't know. Number 1, David Huggins. Oh, David. We've talked about Mr. Huggins before on the channel, and I'm talking about Mr. Huggins again because he's one of my favorite abduction stories. I saved the best for last. David Huggins is a painter who claims that he has been abducted by aliens multiple times throughout his life. They just could not get enough lovin' of Huggins. His first account happened when he was young, and he reported that he saw a UFO hovering over a nearby field, and a humanoid figure appeared down from the craft, blessing Huggins by telling him telepathically that he would have a special mission to fulfill in life. Of course, he had no idea what the special mission was at the time, and if he did, maybe he would not have been as excited. Over the years, Huggins claims that he had several encounters with these alien humanoids who had blessed him. He describes them as being tall and thin and with large heads and large eyes. Now he says these beings have taken him aboard their craft and shown him a number of things, including the creation of the universe, the future of the human race, how they get caramel inside chocolate bars without there being a hole, all sorts of wondrous things. Now here's where things get interesting and a bit difficult to talk about with content guidelines, because Huggins claims that as a part of fulfilling this galactic destiny that he's gone for a few rolls in the hay with aliens, and that he's fathered several alien-human hybrids with the extraterrestrials, and my mom watches these videos, so I'm sorry if I'm struggling. Inspired by these momentous events, Huggins painted his truth, rather directly influencing his artistic career, with most of his paintings depicting humanoid beings and UFOs hanging out. His paintings are actually visible in the Visionary Art Museum in Baltimore if you're up near there and want to check them out sometime. They're really cool. They are definitely not safe for work unless your work is my work, at which case looking at pictures of aliens kissing is my work and my passion. Do what you love and you never work a day in your life, and I have never worked a day in my life. Number 5, the story of Edgar Mitchell. Edgar Mitchell is a storied man. He's part of an incredibly exclusive club out of 12 other people who can claim that they have seen the Earth standing on the surface of the moon. I assume they all have a group chat together. He's best known for typing 80 lines of code to save the Apollo 14 mission as it descended to the moon in 1971. He was the 6th man to ever walk on the moon, and he is a devout believer in aliens being out there. He insists that he knows that top government and military officials were hiding the truth behind aliens in New Mexico. He said it was a known secret that alien spacecraft were responsible for disabling nuclear missiles and shooting them down, supposing that aliens are directly involved in intervention to prevent us from destroying the planet. Which, if that's the case, I've got nothing but thanks to give for our extraterrestrial friends. Thanks for that. We're not that responsible. He goes on to insist that the Roswell incident was real, and the government had covered it up and buried it as a conspiracy theory to deter people from finding out the real truth, which he believes NASA thinks the public simply wouldn't be able to handle. In 2004, he told a Floridan newspaper that he knew of a secret cabal inside the American government that was responsible for studying alien bodies, and that after JFK, this group no longer answered to the president and didn't include the commander-in-chief in their briefings. Mr. Mitchell is quoted as saying, "They all know that UFOs are real. The question is, where are they coming from?" Now, NASA didn't quite have the same tune. NASA themselves obviously denied all of Mitchell's statements, saying that Edgar Mitchell is a great American, but we don't share his opinions on this issue. Well, of course. If you've been sitting on a secret for 60 years, you're not gonna fold over one guy, but a bunch of evidence? Well, maybe. My goblins, you know what time it is. If you've been digging the scares, stick around and subscribe for some scary stuff every single day. Okay, let's creep on. Number 4, Luis Elizondo. Luis Elizondo is one of the most outspoken believers in aliens and UAPs out there today, alongside Tom DeLonge, championing that he believes firmly that NASA and the Pentagon aren't telling us all the whole truth. And he would know, as Elizondo formerly led a research team to research potential UFOs. Although the project was disbanded, Elizondo never gave up his mission, believing it to be his personal calling to expose the truth. He's been quoted many times saying, "My personal belief is there's very compelling evidence that we are not alone." He served on the Department of Defense and resigned in 2012 over excessive secrecy surrounding the UAP program. These aircraft, we'll call them aircraft, are displaying characteristics that are not currently within the US inventory, nor in any foreign inventory that we are aware of, Elizondo said of the objects they researched in his time there. He added that the program was founded to analyze unexplained aerial phenomena and ascertain whether or not that what they were seeing is a threat to national security or not. Kind of unnervingly, when asked about that, he said, "We found a lot. We identified anomalous aircraft that are seemingly defying the laws of aerodynamics." Which, oh hey, coming from the mouth of someone who worked at the Pentagon, that seems just a little bit suspicious, right? Right? Not just me? The quote continues, "Things that don't have any obvious flight services, any obvious forms of propulsion, and maneuvering in ways that include extreme maneuverability beyond, I would submit, the health stealthy G-forces of a human or anything biological. Elizando's gone so far in the past as to suggest that he thinks the US government has fragments of UFOs or UAPs somewhere, reverse engineering it to learn all their secrets. Sounds extremely like someone higher up didn't want people finding out about whatever Elizando was getting onto. And why not? Number 3, the signal. Now when it comes to aliens, we all kind of assume in the back of our heads that our first direct contact with them is going to be very up close and personal. That they'll come down and hopefully we'll see them face to face or face to mandible, or perhaps we'll see their ships descending on us and it's already too late. But what if our first contact was something else? A radar signal, a noise through the silence of space. In 2003, astronomers working for the SETI, short for the Search for Extra Intelligence, a project dedicated to hunting for extraterrestrial life, were using a massive telescope to look to the stars. Now nothing much came of it except for a series of unexplained radio signals from the skies. These signals all disappeared over time except one, which was growing stronger and stronger. The signal comes from somewhere between the constellation of Pisces and Aries, and curiously, the signal is at a frequency that absorbs and emits energy. Naturally, the researchers found this a bit interesting. Some of the astronomers believe that this could be a frequency that extraterrestrials are using to try and get our attention, like an intergalactic "you up" text. While it could very well have turned out to just be totally nothing or some sort of natural explanation that I'm not nearly smart enough to understand, I'm gonna err on the side of extraterrestrials. But we have to wonder what the signal was, right? I mean, we have to admit that's a bit suspicious, that there's something worth looking into there. Now this story is from 2003 and I had trouble finding an update on it, but who knows? Whatever was broadcasting that could still be out there. Number 2, Blue Book. Now I think we all kind of secretly suspect that some of our tax dollars are going to research aliens. I mean, what else are they doing all day? Well, in one form or another, government agencies have always been researching UFOs and UAPs. Since 1949 to 1969, Project Blue Book was the code name for a secret government research division dedicated to analyzing UAP technology, analyzing whether or not UAPs on record were threats to air and national securities, and just what any of this stuff in the sky was. It was basically the closest thing we had to a real-life X-Files department, as far as we know. I mean, there could be an even more secret one. Surely with all that government money, they must have found something special, right? Well, if you'd like to feel like Agent Mulder yourself, you can scroll through 130,000 pages of declassified documents from UFO specialist John Greenwald, who made it all available for free online. He's a defender of free information. Greenwald says secrets are not bad things. I think we should know about this and it should be in the history books. John, I completely agree. All this stuff about cover-ups, we can totally handle finding out aliens are real, okay? You know, we're big now, we're responsible, we learned about Santa, we can do this. A couple years ago, we experienced a wave where there were clowns hanging out on the street corner of like every rural street in North America. We got over that. We all saw Tiger King together. Aliens won't even be that weird, I don't think. Now, Project Blue Book was officially disbanded because according to a joint review, nothing significant ever came from it. Now, since then, it was thought that no government agency was looking into UAP research at all, except until the UAP document quietly dropped this year, you know, sneaking it under the door that NASA and the Air Force had been researching aliens and possible sightings this whole time under everybody's nose, and they leaked a bunch of documents and footage, and you should look it up after this video because I'm not joking, it's totally real. It seems just like us, NASA can't rest until they find the truth out there. Number 1, new developments. We are probably coming to one of the most exciting times in UAP history, as after the UAP report came out, there is probably more legitimacy towards the discussion around the serious existence of extraterrestrial life now more than ever. As of October 2022, NASA is pretty much coming clean and opening a new study into the research of UAP and extraterrestrial life. 16 hand-picked specialists have been selected to analyze former data and determine how to go forward observing future events. Now, the study is less focused on whether or not previous sightings are confirmed UAPs, since it's kind of hard to ascertain with missing data. So it's more focused on what observations will be needed to understand UAP sightings going forward. The team is going to include researchers and key personnel from all divisions, all walks of life, notably including former astronaut Scott Kelly, who formerly served as a pilot for the Space Shuttle Discovery, and also once held the world record for most days in space, so he probably knows a thing or two about objects floating in the stars. Now, Kelly himself doesn't personally believe aliens have been to Earth yet, saying, "I think there's life in the universe." hopefully intelligent life, but I don't think they visit planet Earth. So there's some skeptics on the team, but hey, at least they're finally coming out to get to brass tacks on this thing. Officially, openly, the government is talking with us about studying this phenomena. This is amazing. Now you know how scientists are, they gotta have some numbers on a paper before they'll believe it. An associate administrator at NASA, Thomas Zerbchin, said, "Data is the language of scientists and makes the unexplainable explainable. Exploring the unknown of space and the atmosphere is at the heart of who we are at NASA. This is maybe the most exciting time in history to be a UAP fan." Number 5. The Barney and Betty Hill incident. The case of Barney and Betty Hill has puzzled UFO enthusiasts for generations and is considered one of the most well-documented, well-discussed UFO abduction stories, and also President Obama's favorite. He's making a documentary on it. In 1961, a young couple, Betty and Barney Hill, were driving home through New Hampshire when they saw a bright light flying through the sky. 2 hours later, they found themselves back in their driveway without knowing what had happened, confused, shocked, and afraid. The couple claimed that they traveled to a star system 39 light years from Earth, Zeta Reticuli. Before this point, there weren't really many widespread stories of abductions in the United States, so this story caught on wildly. As they were driving home, the couple noticed something bright in the sky. Feeling dizzy and drowsy, the two of them found themselves asleep and waking up in their driveway, completely lost as to how they got there. When they'd awoken, Betty was convinced that they'd experienced a close encounter and went to Air Force to report their sightings. They would spend the next 2 years explaining their case to various government officials and medical professionals. Mr. Barney Hill would go on to recount to a psychiatrist that he was having nightmarish, repetitive dreams. He would recall these creatures with slanted eyes and gray skins that took them on board and experimented on them by taking samples of their flesh and hair. The two underwent hypnosis therapy from a licensed psychologist in hopes to uncover what they could have experienced and repressed. And shockingly, Betty Hill was able to draw a map of the stars seemingly from memory, a planet orbiting Zeta Reticuli. The map was nearly spot on, a near perfect recreation of the stars surrounding the actual solar system. This event would end up leading to the Air Force launching Project Blue Book, a clandestine program to research UFO and abduction stories and investigate just what's out there. And if you're looking for more UFO content, even stuff on Project Blue Book, we've got all of that and then some. Come take a look through at all the declassified files, stories of abductions, sightings, close encounters, and way more. So stay subscribed, stay scared, but more importantly, stay watching this video. I worked hard on it. We got lots more abduction stories coming up for you in just a second. Number 4, Terrell Copeland. For some, too many abduction stories come from a disreputable source, you know? Well, our next story comes from a former United States Marine, Terrell Copeland, a man who'd seen the brink and back and had never been shook like this before in his life. Pop those ears open and take a listen. Copeland reported this in 2007. He was living in his Virginia apartment when he saw an orb of white light across the street and hovering in the air, some 300 meters above the ground and changing colors rapidly. Now, Terrell had the same reaction most people like you and I might have seeing a glowing, colorful disco ball in the sky, and he thought, well, that's kind of weird, something's wrong. So he recorded it, posted footage online, and claims this is where his life took a dark turn. He was taking a nap in his apartment, and he said it sounded as if someone was breaking in. He called out into the darkness, asking who was invading his space, and he saw the doorknob moving and heard scratching at his door. He grabbed a firearm that he kept in his apartment and went to go ready it, but found himself completely frozen, unable to move no matter how bad he wanted to. He claims he heard a voice that spoke to him, internally, as if it was his own thoughts, saying, "You don't need to do that. We won't harm you." I'm pretty sure if I heard that from inside my head, I would leap out my window just to be safe and take my chances somersaulting down the road because I'm probably safer there. Now, doctors thought this incident was sleep paralysis, a condition in which one can experience vivid auditory and visual hallucinations during a period of insomnia and even freeze up. But Copeland would complain of hours missing that he couldn't remember. He said there was a span of about 4 hours over the course of 2 nights that he couldn't remember a single second of. So Copeland began to keep notes and sketches of his memories as he started to have these blocked memories resurfacing. He claimed that he saw a person with an elongated skull and pitch black eyes, and said he had a vivid memory of standing on a balcony waving at a cylinder-shaped ship. On a positive note for all of this, Copeland says that he doesn't believe this incident has haunted him, but feels that it's made him a better person and asking more questions, and it's definitely given him a story to tell at parties. Number 3, Frederick Valentin. Frederick Valentin was an Australian pilot. He was well trained, and he was an avid enthusiast of UFOs and extraterrestrials. Lucky for him, he might have seen one. Sadly for him, it was the last time anyone saw him. It was 19 1978, and Frederick disappeared over his 125 nautical mile training flight over the Australian mainland. While at 4,500 feet in the air, Valentin reported that there was an unidentifiable craft following behind him. Melbourne Flight Services insisted that there wasn't any other aircraft in the space with him, but Frederick replied back, "No, there's something on my tail." He described it as glowing with 4 repeating bright lights and rushing past him. Valentin said it was shiny, metallic, and chrome, and he was on radio with air control for 5 minutes before he started mysteriously experiencing engine trouble. The flight controller asked him again what was following him. Valentin responded, "It's hovering and it is not an aircraft." And this was the last thing anyone ever heard from Frederick Valentin. Authorities were completely unable to recover his craft, and after an intense search, threw their shoulders up at a loss. A local farmer alleged that he had seen a strange flying object in the sky the same day as Valentin's disappearance. The farmer went on to explain that he claims he saw the plane attached to this UFO. He told officials that he was scared to tell anyone about what he had seen for fear he would be the town laughingstock if he was a farmer raving about a UFO. Tragically, in the end, we're no closer to understanding what happened to Frederick now than we were all those years ago in 1978. Did Frederick get his wish? Did he get to see an alien up close? Did they take him back to the stars? Or who knows? And we may never know. I don't know. Number 2, Travis Walton. Alien abduction stories can be a little much sometimes. I'm sure you can agree. Even for those with very open minds, you know, they all seem kind of the same, and usually you can poke holes through them and find all the little weird details that don't add up. Well, take a listen to this one. Travis Walton's story is one of the most famous abduction examples on record. You might be familiar with it before if you study UFO stuff a lot. I've covered it a few times on this channel before because I think it is one of the most fascinating abduction stories, so let's hear it. In 1975, Travis Walton was working as a logger on an otherwise unremarkable day, and he was with 6 other loggers driving around in the forest when they saw something incredibly bright shining at them through the treetops. One of the men claimed that it looked like a flattened saucer. Walton stepped out of the truck to investigate and was struck by some invisible force that had knocked him backward. This startled the rest of the crew, who drove off in a flurry. And it's a great way to find out who your real friends are. Your real friends are not the guys who leave you in the woods where you're about to get abducted. I wouldn't do that to you. When the crew returned, Walton had vanished. Travis awoke and had thought that he'd been taken to a hospital because suddenly he found himself in a blindingly bright, sterile room and could hear people moving around him. But it wasn't until he got a good look at his doctors that he realized something was very wrong. 3 feet tall, brown quarter-sized pupils, and marshmallow-like skin. Walton freaked out, I think as most of us probably would do, and was restrained by his captors. He fought them off, but was greeted by a tall creature that he said resembled human, but was masked by an intimidating helmet, kind of a Darth Vader deal. This masked creature took Walton and escorted him back into the operating room, put a translucent mask over his face, while Walton drifted out of consciousness over and over again, unsure if anything that was happening was real. The next thing he remembers is walking alongside a highway as if nothing had ever happened. He eventually found his way to a phone and called for his brother-in-law, who panically asked what had happened. It turned out that Walton had been gone for 5 days. He was untraceable. Search parties had formed looking for him, sent dogs and choppers, tracked him from the woods, but no one could find any sign of him, as if he'd blinked right out of existence, and then blinked right back. Travis swore what happened to him was absolutely real, an abduction, and he's maintained this ever since that fateful week in 1975. Now, if you really think this story is fascinating, and you wish you could have seen some footage of what Travis described, unfortunately he didn't bring his camcorder. You can, however, watch a 90s movie directly based off the case called Fire in the Sky. It's on Amazon Prime or something, I'm sure. And finally, number 1, the Burkshire Incident. Now here's the thing with most UFO sightings. They're isolated scenarios, you know? One sleep-deprived night watchman sees something weird out the corner of his eye. Somebody up way too late sees something up in the sky. It's hard to believe just one person's story. That's why it's significantly harder to write off the experience of Berkshire County, where half the town reported seeing the same UFO. Uncanny and unprecedented. 250 residents and more all reported seeing the same UFOs flying across the night sky. So it was 1969. Multiple residents across town spotted blinding lights above Sheffield in the southern Berkshires. Witnesses reported that the lights they saw were beaming from saucers, bright lights onto the horizon. Some residents said that they felt that time was slowing down as they watched the object, claiming that it left them frozen and stunned, wondering just what it was they were looking at. One witness comes from a young student, one Thomas Reed, who said that he saw one of the floating entities days, a glowing orb dashing outside the forest. He claims he heard an eruption of crickets and frogs and a loud deafening sound, and then inexplicably 2 hours had passed without anyone understanding why or how. His mother and grandmother had switched car seats as well. Now, as an adult, Thomas Reed claims that over time, his family has corroborated what had happened to them. He speaks of being in this immensely large, almost infinitely spanning metal hangar with hallways and hallways stretching out forever. Thomas Reed took a polygraph test telling this story and was found to be 99.1% truthful. Multiple people across Berkshire that day reported similar stories: balls of light, flying saucers, losses of time, finding themselves somewhere they couldn't explain. The residents of Berkshire may never get to the bottom of what happened there, but I know the truth is out there. And I know Top 5 Scary is gonna find it, I'm pretty sure.
And for our number 5, we have Allen Hills 84001. On December 27th, 1984, a team of American meteorite hunters from the ANSMET project, which stands for Antarctic Search for Meteorites, found a fragment just like the other members of the NSC group of meteorites. This special fragment is also thought to have originated on Mars. However, it didn't fit into any of the previously discovered SNC groups. Upon discovery, they weighed this meteorite fragment and it was 1.93 kilograms, 4.3 pounds. And around 8 years later, in 1996, a group of scientists actually found features in the likeness of microscopic fossils of bacteria in the meteorite, which suggests that these organisms also originated in Mars. And of course, these claims made headlines, and US President Bill Clinton at the time even gave a speech about the potential discovery. But just like the other claims of life outside of our own planet, it was quite controversial from the very start. The wider scientific community rejected the hypothesis once all the unusual features in this special piece of meteorite were explained. Although it was just fossilized bacteria found, some believe it's a sign of life outside our own planet, whereas others believe this isn't proof of aliens at all. And this wasn't the only time they found fossil evidence, because on March 4th, 2011, NASA scientist Richard Hoover published a paper claiming to have found fossil evidence of cyanobacteria in carbonaceous meteorites. He actually observed slices of meteorites by scanning electron microscopes and identified filaments and structures that resembled the tiny single-celled algae. Some scientists were immediately skeptical because the study was published by a questionable journal, which was Cosmology. Other researchers believe the study was conducted thoroughly, but it was too soon to say for sure if the claim would hold up or not. Plus, in 1996, a team of science led by David McKay of NASA's Johnson Space Flight Center announced they had discovered evidence for microscopic fossil life in a meteorite from Mars. So maybe next time a meteor flies into our planet, start examining it for signs of life. And for number 4, we have Anaxagoras Ark. In ancient Greece, there was a philosopher who was known as Anaxagoras, and he provided scientific explanations for what seemed like supernatural phenomena like eclipses, rainbows, and even suggested that the moon is not a god but rather a rock and the sun was a hot rock. And because of these claims, he was sentenced to the end of his life. Those weren't his only claims, because he also considered the possibility that the moon might actually be inhabited, which was very controversial and contradicted the dominant view of cosmos that was outlined by Plato and Aristotle. Plato refused to acknowledge the existence of worlds other than our own, and Aristotle rejected it because it didn't work with his understanding of gravity, which was that Earth was the one and only center of the universe. Although Anaxagoras' theories about the sun and moon were right, he did incorrectly believe that the Earth was flat, but still was the first to correctly explain the phenomenon of an eclipse. According to Greek mythology, the moon was personified as a goddess Selene, who visited the Earth according to the lunar cycle. But this view was contradicted by Anaxagoras' theory that the moon was rocky and physical body that was possibly inhabited by aliens. Although the philosopher lived between 500 BC and 428 BC, he is actually recognized as a brilliant scientist and philosopher by modern standards, but back in his time it was quite the opposite, as his close friend, who was also the infamous Greek politician General Pericles, testified to defend him at his trial, but it wasn't enough to save him. And that wasn't the only occurrence from the times before us that indicates life outside our own planet, and this is because of Anunnaki. The direct translation is princely offspring of the Anunnaki was believed to be an offspring of An and his consort of the earth goddess Kai. The Anunnaki theorem explored the concept of God and how it may have originated within the mythology of the ancient Sumerian people. There is a whole family tree that shows the grand assembly of the ancient Anunnaki, which is also referenced as the Sumerian family tree. They're known for being immortal gods who lived on Earth during the ancient Sumerian times in Mesopotamia. Archaeologists have not yet uncovered any indication or proof that the Anunnaki were worshipped collectively, but rather each god had their own individual cult and different cities had different temples dedicated to individuals. And if you're wondering how these gods and goddesses tie themselves to aliens, it's because a series of published books that started with the Chariots of the Gods back in 1968 by pseudo-archaeologists Erich von Däniken claimed that aliens of ancient astronauts had visited prehistoric Earth. He utilized the origins of religion and reactions to contact with the alien race and even offers interpretations of Sumerian texts and the Old Testament as evidence. And in 1976, another book titled The 12th Planet had the author Zecharia Sitchin claiming that the Anunnaki were actually advanced humanoid extraterrestrial species that were from the undiscovered planet of Nibiru, who came to Earth around 500,000 years ago and began mining our planet after discovering Earth had a lot of precious metals like gold. Others like Ronald H. Fritz wrote how, according to Sitchin, the Anunnaki built the pyramids and other structures across the ancient world that ancient astronaut theorists believe it was possible to build without highly advanced technology. But structures like the pyramid have been a heavy topic. Ultimately, archaeologists believe it was indeed built by humans. And for number 3, we have Sego Canyon or Barrier Canyon. There are thousands of rock art in the southwest, but the oldest ones are from the Barrier Canyon pictographs found throughout the Colorado Plateau. They're often spotted along rivers, especially the Green and Colorado rivers, with some believed to be painted around 9,000 years ago. And many of them are at least 5,000 years old, which range anywhere from 5-inch animal figures to some interesting shapes. Some include a 8-foot human tall-like structure with no arms or legs and even have big alien-like eyes. Of all the human-like figures, only 20 to 25% of them actually had eyes, and most had no ears or noses or any way to distinguish their genders. The color of the paint is often dark blood red, which is believed to be made by combining blood, clay, and even possibly urine as a binder. These paintings were so odd that they even featured on the History's channel Ancient Aliens, where Giorgio Tsoukalos shared how the ancient natives must have created this rock art to commemorate a visit from the extraterrestrials. Some of the figures painted even have antennas or headdresses, and most just have hollowed out eyes. Unfortunately, many areas have been heavily vandalized, which makes some of the art hard to see, but regardless, the pigment is still there to at least give you the ability to see the main shape of it. Some believe these are for sure aliens, whereas others believe they could be hallucinations. Regardless, are definitely very interesting and unique, and definitely piques our curiosity of what inspired these figures to be drawn. Other paintings have been believed to resemble UFOs, like the painting of the Baptism's Church from 1710, which seems to be showing a flying disc-like object with light beams. For number 2, we have ancient Egyptian pharaonic coffin. It's no secret that archaeologists have found coffins dating back to ancient Egypt, hidden in pyramids or other areas. But did you know that NASA released photos taken on the Red Planet, which many believe prove that Martians do exist? Well, Scott Waring, who is an author and UFO expert, believes that the photos show ancient Egyptian pharaonic coffins. The shape of the so-called body seems to match up with other pharaonic coffins, plus there are many pharaonic inscriptions or sarcophagus, which the inscriptions were identified by advanced cameras. And surprisingly, this isn't the only tie to ancient Egypt space seems to have, because a year prior to this discovery, NASA rover Corsetti gained a ton of attraction after astronomers believed it revealed an ancient statue. In fact, many astronomers and even archaeologists believe that ancient Egyptians on Earth or pharaohs actually came from Mars. Apparently, others spot carvings that resemble faces and even unfinished statues, which some believe is what the Martians left behind. Waring describes the faces and differences between what we perceive as human figures compared to the carvings, which appear to also have an eye, nose, and chin, but very extended forehead, which Waring believes could mean it occupied a more advanced brain. Although many believe this is way too weird to just be a coincidence, none of this is backed up by scientific proof, but that doesn't stop archaeologists and the public in general to think otherwise. And for our number 1 spot, we have the NASA Viking lander. Back in 1976, NASA's 2 Viking landers touched the surface of Mars, and the probes conducted a host of biological experiments, which even included collecting samples of Martian soil to test for organic compounds. But what's so special about organic compounds? Well, it is the building block of life, and being able to detect biosignatures could allude to the presence of microorganisms. In other words, at least some form of life. However, the results were deemed ambiguous, but they really did find evidence of current microbial life in the Martian soil. And this wasn't the only time life was once seemingly on Mars, because a team of scientists at Penn State analyzed Curiosity rover data and found that Mars could have actually had more flowing water or rivers than once believed, and if there is water, there is life. In a study published by Geophysical Research Letters, the researchers determined that many craters covering Mars could have actually been habitable rivers. Benjamin Cardenas, who is a Penn State geosciences professor, stated Mars could have had far more rivers than previously believed, which certainly paints a more optimistic view of ancient life on Mars. And he also added, it offers a vision of Mars where most of the planet once had the right conditions for life. And just recently, NASA's Perseverance rover found another form of evidence of flowing water on Mars. In early December of 2023, NASA released photos that were captured, which shows a collection of rocks and pebbles around Mars's Jezero crater. So what's so interesting about rocks? Well, it's believed that rocks and pebbles that were visible in the photo were brought in by strong floodwaters from billions of years ago. Life ultimately doesn't equal the aliens we may picture in our head. And the reason why scientists are curious about water on other planets is because life started in water on Earth as it forms microorganisms, which leads to the formations of different or more complex aquatic organisms. And for life on land, scientists believe that animals and plants on land developed later on. It is almost a given that if a planet has water, there are much greater chances that it'll develop life forms. But what about other planets? Other than Mars, they often search Europa, which is a satellite of Jupiter. And it is a frozen world, and scientists even believe that there is a vast liquid ocean below the thick ice which may harbor life.
Number 5. PEI Unidentified Fossil. In late August on Cape Egmont Beach in Prince Edward Island, Canada, a routine dog walk for high school teacher Lisa St. Coeur Cormier turned extraordinary when she stumbled upon a remarkable find, a 300-million-year-old fossil. During her walk with her dog Sammy, Cormier initially mistook the fossil for a tree root protruding from the sand. However, a closer look revealed a well-preserved ribcage, spine, and skull, sparking her curiosity further. Excited about her find, Cormier shared images of the fossil with her family. Her mother-in-law, in turn, forwarded the picture to PEI's fossil experts, including Laura McNeil from Prehistoric Island Tours. Recognizing the significance of the discovery, McNeil anticipated its potential impact on the island. Geologist and paleontologist John Calder, upon receiving the photos, recognized the rarity of the specimen and expressed a sense of urgency to examine it. Calder highlighted the scarcity of fossils from this period, emphasizing the importance of Cormier's find. Calder speculated that the creature lived during the Permian period, categorizing it as a rare specimen, possibly a reptile creature. The uniqueness of the find adds to its significance, potentially making it a one-of-a-kind discovery. Prince Edward Island has gained recognition in recent years for significant fossil discoveries. In 2018, fossilized footprints of pre-dinosaur reptilian predator from the Permian period were found on Cavendish Beach. Calder emphasized the island's prominence in the world of paleontology, attributing its richness in fossils to being above water during ancient times when much of Canada was submerged. And now it's sinking again. Humans are insanely irresponsible, oh my god. Concerned about the new fossil being washed away, Calder and a dig team made a substantial effort to retrieve it, given its location at the water's edge. The urgency stemmed from the need to secure the fossil during a brief window between the tides. Prince Edward Island's fossil legacy, displayed by Cormier's chance discovery, adds a chapter to the island's rich geological history, captivating paleontologists and enthusiasts worldwide. Number 4. Nazca Alien. In 2017, the Nazca Desert in Peru became the epicenter of a sensational claim that shocked the ufology community. A group of self-proclaimed researchers claimed that they had unearthed real alien bodies near the famous Nazca lines, igniting a fervor of conspiracy theories and speculations. The supposedly recovered extraterrestrial bodies were described as humanoid, with elongated skulls and 3-fingered hands, resembling the stereotypical depiction of aliens that we are all very familiar with. The discovery was accompanied by videos and images showing off the unearthed specimens, furthering the belief that undeniable proof of extraterrestrial life had finally been found. To add a veneer of scientific legitimacy to their claims, the researchers claimed to have conducted DNA testing on the unearthed beings. They insisted that the results revealed a non-human, likely extraterrestrial origin. The anomalies in the genetic makeup, they argued, were inconsistent with any known terrestrial species, sparking intrigue and reinforcing the conspiracy narrative. Conspiracy surrounding the Nazca alien incident quickly intertwined with ancient astronaut theories. Some enthusiasts claim that the Nazca lines themselves were evidence of extraterrestrial visitation in ancient times, stating that their found alien bodies were somehow connected to these mysterious geoglyphs. The amalgamation of past and present extraterrestrial encounters further deepened the mystery. As news of the Nazca alien incident spread, so did accusations of a government cover-up. Conspiracy theorists argued that authorities were suppressing the truth about the extraterrestrial bodies to maintain control over the narrative surrounding potential contact with alien civilizations. The lack of mainstream media coverage on the purported discovery only intensified suspicions of a concerted effort to conceal the truth. Despite the global frenzy sparked by the Nazca alien incident, skepticism prevailed among many in the scientific community. Critics pointed out inconsistencies in the research methodology, emphasizing the lack of peer-reviewed studies and the questionable credibility of those behind the discovery. While believers held on to the notion of an extraterrestrial revelation, skeptics underscored the need for rigorous scientific scrutiny before accepting such extraordinary claims. Although embraced by some as undeniable evidence of alien life, the claims made by the researchers faced considerable skepticism. As debates continue, the Nazca alien incident remains a fascinating chapter in the ongoing quest to unravel the mysteries of the cosmos. But yeah, pretty sure this is the same guy that pulled up at the recent Mexico hearing with the two aliens and claimed the exact same pile of trash proof. And the flipping ribs, oh my god, okay. I'm not getting back into that, it actually drove me insane, but whatever. Number 3, Atacama skeleton. The Atacama skeleton, commonly referred to as ATA, is a 6-inch skeletal remain of a human fetus discovered in 2003 in a deserted Chilean town in the Atacama Desert. Initial DNA analysis in 2018 indicated unusual mutations related to dwarfism and scoliosis. However, subsequent research disputed these findings, suggesting normal fetal development. Speculation arose, including claims by UFO theorist Stephen M. Greer suggesting extraterrestrial origins. This led to ATA's inclusion in the 2013 UFO film Sirius. Stanford University geneticist Gary P. Nolan analyzed the remains, concluding that ATA is indeed human, dispelling extraterrestrial claims. Initially thought to be older, ATA's remains date back to the late 1970s. Despite an irregularly shaped skull, 10 ribs instead of 12, and potential signs of oxycephaly, experts like William Jungers proposed that ATA was a prematurely born human fetus. DNA analysis revealed the B2 mtDNA haplotype group, indicating an indigenous origin in the western region of South America. Nolan's 2018 study identified rare bone aging disorder and 64 unusual mutations in genes associated with skeletal development, dwarfism, scoliosis, and muscle abnormalities. A study led by New Zealand's University of Otago questioned Nolan's findings, asserting normal skeletal development and expressing skepticism about genomic results. Ethical concerns were raised, criticizing Nolan's work for potential colonialist tendencies. Genome Research, the publisher of the earlier study, responded by defending their ethical standards but acknowledged the need for reviewing policies on such studies. In response to ethical concerns, the authors of the Genome Research article called for reconstruction of ATA's remains, distancing themselves from possible ethical missteps. They emphasized their limited knowledge about the circumstances of discovery and handling, as they were presented with a small bone sample for analysis. Many people believe that the body is simply a human, but the debate continues to remain prominent. Number 2, Varginha UFO Incident. In January 1996, the tranquil city of Varginha, Brazil, witnessed an extraordinary event that sent shockwaves through the community. Numerous locals reported sightings of a UFO flying towards the region. Eyewitnesses saw that the UFO crash-landed in a rural area, sparking immediate curiosity and fear among the residents. As the news of the UFO spread, somehow an even more astonishing aspect emerged. Some witnesses disclaimed that they had encountered strange humanoid beings near the crash site. Descriptions of these entities were consistent throughout the witnesses: small humanoid figures with dark, oily skin and large red eyes. In the aftermath of the reported UFO crash, the Brazilian military became involved. Witnesses claimed that Brazilian personnel donned in hazmat suits cordoned off the area and retrieved the alien bodies. The military, however, denied any involvement with the incident, fueling even more conspiracy theories about a possible top-secret government cover-up. The report suggested that the alien bodies were then taken to local hospitals for examination. Witnesses claimed that several medical staff were involved in the autopsies on the extraterrestrial entities. This purported connection between the medical community and the alien bodies intensified the conspiracy theories surrounding the incident. As news of the incident spread through the media, it triggered a wave of public hysteria. Local international news outlets covered the story, amplifying the speculation about the presence of alien bodies. The lack of official explanations and contradictory statements from authorities further fueled the conspiracy, which was blazing at this point. Decades after the Varginha incident, speculation and conspiracy theories persist. The event has become ingrained in UFO culture, with books, documentaries, and online discussions continuing to explore the possibility of extraterrestrial contact. The enduring mystery of Varginha serves as an example of our fascination with the unknown and the complexities of separating fact from imagination and fiction in the world of unidentified phenomena. Number 1. Texas, 1897. In 1897, the small town of Aurora, Texas, found itself thrust into the conspiracy spotlight when residents claimed to witness an otherworldly event. On April 17th, a UFO crashed into a windmill on Judge Proctor's property, leading to a sequence of events that would forever be etched into extraterrestrial lore. Locals who rushed to the crash site reported an astonishing discovery. The wreckage of the UFO contained the remains of a small being, who was described as not of this world. Witnesses claimed the creature was minuscule, with features reminiscent of our imagined extraterrestrial being. The extraterrestrial body was said to be badly disfigured, which resulted in raised eyebrows and widespread speculation. Residents claimed to have found a small, undecipherable metallic object near the crash site as well. This object, thought to be a piece of the UFO, fueled the notion that the otherworldly visitor crash-landed in their town. The mystery deepened as reports circulated of a small inscription on the metallic fragment. As word spread of the findings, so did theories of a cover-up. Conspiracy theorists argued that the government was actively suppressing information about the incident to prevent mass hysteria, and honestly, that doesn't sound too insane to me. The alien being was said to have left behind a message, possibly a form of extraterrestrial communication that could unravel mysteries of the universe. This speculation intensified the belief that the authorities were concealing profound knowledge about the cosmos. In a move that added an air of legitimacy to the claims, the townspeople gave the extraterrestrial pilot a proper burial in their local cemetery, a headstone marked with the final resting place of the alien, and with the epitaph describing the mysterious unidentified visitor as a Martian. This symbolic gesture further fueled the conspiracy, as Aurora became a focal point for those fascinated by the prospect of extraterrestrial life. While skepticism has surrounded the Aurora UFO incident, its legacy definitely persists in pop culture. The 1897 Texas encounter remains a cornerstone in the world of UFO lore, capturing the imaginations of those who believe in the possibility of extraterrestrial life, i.e., us curious minds. Number 5. Alien Task Force. In July of 2022, a government-aligned UAP organization was created, the AARO. Or the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, directed by Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick. It's the government lead for all UAP-related anomalies. The purpose of ARO is summarized in their mission and vision statements, which say their goals are to minimize technical and intelligence surprise by synchronizing scientific, intelligence, and operational detection, identification, attribution, and mitigation of unidentified anomalous phenomena in the vicinity of national security areas. Vision statement is, unidentified anomalous phenomena are effectively and efficiently detected, tracked, analyzed, and managed by way of normalized DoD, intelligence community, and civil business practices, by adherence to the highest scientific and intelligence tradecraft standards, and with the greatest transparency and shared awareness. A lot. ARO reviews reports of UAPs and has received hundreds of reports. Dr. Kirkpatrick estimates that they receive 50 to 100 reports each month. They investigate each and every video and report using their scientific resources. The RO reports to Deputy Defense Secretary Kathleen Hicks. It is the first government office to be tasked with synchronizing efforts across the DoD and the interagency to collect, report, and analyze UAPs. They are taking a collaborative, objective, data-driven approach to their mission. The RO has a website that anyone can visit to check out all of this information for themselves. There are countless videos of UAP sightings posted to the government-backed website. They are also working on a government personnel sighting report program for current and former government employees who may have knowledge of UAPs. RO replaced the Unidentified Aerial Phenomena Task Force, UAPT, which only ran from 2019 to 2021. I personally think that the RO is pretty cool. I mean, oftentimes alien conspiracists are shamed for not believing in science, but having an accomplished physicist show so much passion and determination for getting answers reminds us all what science is really about. It's about understanding the worlds around us, asking questions, making theories, and of course, staying curious. Number 4, government-owned UAPs. In July of 2023, 3 former military officials entered a Congress hearing and shook the minds of hundreds of people. David Grush told the panel that he was absolutely certain the government was in possession of UAPs. David Grush is a decorated Afghanistan soldier and a former Air Force intelligence officer who worked at the NGA, which is the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, and at the NRO, which is the National Reconnaissance Office. From 2019 to 2021, he was the NRO representative of the UAPT. Remember, the organization that came before RO? A lot of letters. David was the co-lead for UAP analysis for the NGA. He assisted in drafting the National Defense Authorization Act of 2023, which includes provisions for the reporting of UFOs, including whistleblower protections and exemptions to non-disclosure orders and agreements. So clearly, he's a pretty accomplished man, and a man who is extremely knowledgeable of the events and conversations that are taking place in government settings, especially surrounding UAPs and Inhumans. David claimed that he was informed multi-decade Pentagon program that sought to locate, collect, and reconstruct UAPs. He interviewed over 40 people in 4 years and has come to the conclusion that the government is currently in possession of UAP. He said he actually knew the exact location of the technology, as the information was provided to him, the Inspector General, and some was provided to the intelligence committees. David claims that the program is funded above congressional oversight, being bankrolled by a misappropriation of funds. When asked if that meant there was money being taken out of other programs, yes, I have specific knowledge of that. David was unable to release more information regarding the funding, as he said it was classified. He stated that even though he didn't have any first-hand experience with UAPs, he knows several colleagues who have encountered and even been injured by them. The entire hearing was extremely telling. A lot of crazy revelations came to light, but UAPs weren't the only thing the government was accused of possessing and hiding, and they definitely weren't the most interesting thing either, which brings us into our next point. Number 3, non-human biologics at a crash site. During the same hearing that David Grush dropped the news that the government had UAPs, he dropped another, even bigger extraterrestrial bomb on everyone. He claimed to be aware of colleagues who had recovered from non-human biologics derived from UAP crashes. However, when asked to provide evidence to substantiate his claims, Grush again stated that he was not able to provide any more information, as it was classified. But he did describe the unsettling nature of what he witnessed. I have to be very careful here. What I personally witnessed, myself and my wife, was very disturbing. Grush informed the panel that though he could not elaborate on everything in front of the public, he was able and willing to provide more information to select people in a sensitive compartmented information facility. He claims that his testimony was based on information given to him by trusted individuals, who all had a long-standing record of legitimacy. He said that the sources shared proof in photographs, documentation, and official oral testimonies. When asked if he had known of anyone who lost their lives due to inhuman materials, Grush responded, "I directed people with that knowledge to the appropriate authorities." Grush said that he'd suffered retaliation within the government for his decision to become a whistleblower, but he hoped that his coming forward would help with future transparency from the government to citizens. What inhuman biologics were seen and found are still a mystery, but many people have theorized as to what exactly Grush meant. He divulged that pilots who recovered from crashes had been affected by the inhuman biologics, which was the assessment that people with direct knowledge of the situation provided Grush. Many agencies and news outlets have since spoken out against David's claims, criticizing him for his outlandish lies, as they put it. I don't think what Grush is saying is accurate. While it's possible he's believing what he's saying, it's an incredible story that really needs some actual verification. So far, the best evidence Grush has come up with, besides his own word, is the government's denial. Even RO director, Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick, has spoken in opposition of David, stating that David has refused contact with the RO. Kirkpatrick even added on, saying that the hearing was insulting to the officers of the Department of Defense and intelligence community who chose to join RO, many with not unreasonable anxieties about the career risks this would entail. Grush has not responded to any of these criticisms. Here's my opinion on it. I'm just not sure why he would lie, and if he is lying, why? There must be something even deeper going on because, as we know, the government frequently covers up a huge scandal with many smaller ones. What do you think? Number 2, UFO in disguise. Now we're gonna go a little bit south, down to Mexico, where the shocking hearing revealed and presented jaw-dropping extraterrestrial information. A photo that first appears to be a close-up of a star, where the sun is claimed to be a UFO. The strange thing about this star, though, was it wasn't in space. It was in the sky, and it wasn't burning out the eyes of onlookers. It's described as a spherical object with 3 layers, seemingly made of light or energy. Many have commented that it looks as though there is a UFO in the center of the orb. A user commented, "A ring or layers may not be the craft itself, but an effect of the camera. I'm not saying it's not a UAP and all camera stuff. There is without a doubt a glowing UAP up there. Just saying the layered look appears to be the common effect that happens when taking photos of bright things in the sky from a distance." They further noted the similarities between this photo and the description that Charles Halt provided in regards to the Rendlesham incident. For those of you who are unaware of the Rendlesham Forest incident, I'll give you a quick summary of it. In December of 1980, a series of sightings, all claiming to have seen strange, unexplained lights were reported. The lights were seen near a United States Air Force occupied base in England. Many personnel claimed to have seen these lights, including Colonel Charles Halt. Furthered the curiosity when he stated that he also saw UFOs among the lights. Some men drew diagrams and pictures to try to record what the lights looked like. Halt described that the lights were red, sun-like light. Sun-like light. Adding, "It's like the pupil of an eye looking at you, winking, and the flash is so bright to the starscope that, it almost burns your eye." Users have also released their own photos online of images similar to what had been released. There have been no official answers regarding what the Rendlesham incident was, or what the similar disguised UFO from the Mexico hearing was. Finally, number 1, non-human mummy. As always, I saved the best for last. During the same Mexico hearing, a researcher presented 2 unidentified inhuman beings to the world. Yes, Jamie Masson is a journalist and researcher on UAPs. Jamie entered the hearing with 2 boxes, each carrying what he claims are the small stuffed bodies of extraterrestrial beings. Jamie and a colleague ran extensive testing on both of the specimens: X-rays, 3D reconstructions, macro and microscopic analysis, DNA analysis, and just about every test you could possibly run on a creature. They found that the creatures were 100%, without a doubt, non-human. He describes the creatures, stating, "They are 60 centimeters long, covered by a white powder that, through electron microscopy, we identify as diatom powder, which allows the desiccation of the bodies as well as the absence of the generation of bacteria, fungi, and cadaveric fauna. The presence of this dust allows the perfect conservation by desiccation of these bodies, causing a natural conservation process over time, which we were able to calculate by applying the carbon-14 test, which indicated and dated an average of 1,000 years old." They claim to have recovered the creatures in Peru in 2017. They were able to identify that one of the creatures was 1,800 years old and the other was 700 years old. Each had only 3 fingers and 3 toes, a head, a neck, abdomen, and limbs. The bones were resistant, light but strong. Jamie compared them to the bones of a bird. The skull has the characteristics which further display how light yet resistant the bones are. The skull also has a lot of space for what they would figure would be a brain and eyes. The brain would be incredibly large and the eyes would have had an amazing field of vision. They were able to tell that the species consumed food through swallowing opposed to chewing. The bone formation in the neck is not found in primate species like humans, monkeys, or apes. They were able to find evidence of eggs, which prove that the species was biological and organic, as the replication would be impossible to falsify, according to Jamie. The creatures had strange fingerprints. Opposed to being a circular pattern like ours, theirs were completely straight and horizontally linear. The species also have metal implants that are attached below the skin near the surface. The implants are alloys of several metals, including osmium and cadmium, which are both used for satellite telecommunications. They compared the DNA with over 1 million different species and found that there's a significant difference between all of them. The studies that proved how different this species is were conducted in various countries. The results showed that 70% of the genetic material is known, but 30% isn't. This difference is absolutely insane. The difference between humans and primates is less than 5%, and the difference between humans and bacteria is less than 15%. 30% is huge. Jamie closed his presentation by saying, "I can affirm that these bodies are 100% real, organic, and biological, that at the time they had a life and are irrefutable evidence in themselves. We are facing the paradigm of describing a new species or the opportunity to accept that there has been contact with other non-human beings that were drawn and pointed out in the past, in various cultures throughout the world, such as Peru, Egypt, and Mexico, and that today we can accept their existence among and with us." Many have challenged Jamie's claims, stating that similar discoveries have been forged in the past. By him. They also added that they do not have any actual proof that any of the tests were ever carried out. But I don't know. It doesn't sound completely outlandish to me. I mean, humans do have a track record of wiping out humanoid species. I mean, just think of the Neanderthals. I wouldn't be surprised if humans just got jealous of the creature's superior intellect and decided, let's get rid of them.
In 5th place, we have helicopter hieroglyphs. So depictions of modern crafts found in ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs have been hailed as proof of time travel and even an advanced alien civilization visiting our ancestors. For folks like us, hieroglyphs appearing to resemble planes and helicopters in artwork done thousands of years ago, have been hailed as unequivocal proof that the ancient Egyptians were visited by beings who brought with them advanced technology from the future. With many supporters of the theory saying if the ancient civilization was putting helicopters and modern spacecrafts in their artwork, then they must have seen them, or at least observed images of them, which, makes sense to me. The helicopter name is a name given to part of an Egyptian hieroglyph carving from the temple of Seti I at Abydos. They've been interpreted as an out-of-place artifact, depicting a helicopter, as well as other examples of modern technology. The initial carving was made during the reign of Seti I and translates to, "He who repulses the 9 enemies of Egypt." It was later filled in with plaster and recarved during the reign of Ramesses II with the title, "He who protects Egypt and overthrows the foreign countries." Over time, the plaster has eroded away, leaving both inscriptions partially visible and creating a palimpsest-like effect of overlapping hieroglyphs. As with all dates in ancient Egypt, the actual dates of Seti's reign are unclear, and various historians propose different dates, with 1294 BC to 1279 BC and 1290 BC to 1279 BC being the most commonly used by scholars today. Nevertheless, the 3,000-year-old hieroglyphs found in the temple in Abydos are said to depict a helicopter, plane, and futuristic aircraft amongst the usual insects, symbols, and snakes. Snakes. One popular theory, known as the Ancient Aliens theory, is that, like I said already, the advanced race who brought details of futuristic technology to the Egyptians were visitors from a far-flung, highly advanced planet, visiting to share their knowledge with the primitive communities here on Earth. The beliefs claim these extraterrestrials were the ones behind the development of the pyramids, Stonehenge, and other world-famous monuments. And this is not the last I'll be talking about that today. Steve Mera is a UFOologist who tours the country giving talks on the research he conducts, and at UFO conferences, he produces these hieroglyphs as, part of the debate. During one talk, he pointed out that the helicopter, describing how it has what looks like a rotor blade and a rudder, also possibly a wing, they had to have the visual from somewhere. Once again. In 4th place, we have Nazca Line. On a high and dry plateau some 200 miles southeast of Lima, more than 800 long, straight white lines are etched into the Peruvian desert. Looks to kinda be random. Joining them are 300 geometric shapes and 70 figures of animals, including a spider, a monkey, and a hummingbird. Okay, if I talk about spiders one more time today, I'm gonna jump out of my skin. Eep. I swear I used to claim my arachnophobia was mild, but it's getting worse by the week around here. The longest of the lines run, straight as an arrow for miles, and the biggest shapes stretch nearly 1,200 feet across and are best viewed from the air. Scientists suspect that the Nazca drawings are as many as 2 millennia old, and because of their age, size, visibility from above, and mysterious nature, the lines are often cited as one of the best examples of alien handiwork on Earth. Just, gonna emphasize that. Otherwise, how would an ancient culture have been able to make such huge designs in the desert without being able to fly? And also, why? First studied in the early 1900s, the designs were initially suspected to be aligned with constellations or solstices, but more recent work suggests that the Nazca lines point to ceremonial or ritual sites related to water and fertility. And in addition to being visible from the air, the shapes can be seen from surrounding foothills. In 3rd place, we have the Rosetta Stone. So the Rosetta Stone is one of the most famous objects in the British Museum, and is technically a broken part of a bigger stone slab. It has a message carved into it, written in 3 types of writing that helped experts learn to read Egyptian hieroglyphs. So the writing on the stone is an official message. message, called a decree, about Ptolemy V. I swear I tried to look it up. If I forgot, I'm so sorry folks, I am running on an hour and a half of sleep today. The decree was copied on, large stone slabs called stelae, which were put in every temple in Egypt. The Rosetta Stone is one of these copies, so not particularly important at the time, but remember a moment ago when I mentioned it has 3 types of writing? So specifically, hieroglyphs used for priestly decrees, demotic, which was the cursive Egyptian script used for daily purposes, meaning language of the people, and ancient Greek, the language of the administrations, and the rulers of Egypt at this point were Greco-Macedonian after Alexander the Great's conquest. Now, here's where the aliens come in for me. What if these things also provided a means of translation for alien species? What if whoever visited to help build the pyramids and the helicopter-looking devices knew how to translate hieroglyphs, but not the other common dialects, and the boards also served as a helpful lexicon for them? The decrees were everywhere in Egypt, providing ample source material. So the Rosetta Stone was found broken and incomplete, featuring only 14 lines of hieroglyphic script. Although accounts of the stone's discovery in July of 1799 are now rather vague, the story generally accepted is that it was found by accident by the soldiers in Napoleon Bonaparte's army. They discovered the Rosetta Stone on July 15th of 1799 while digging the foundations of an addition to a fort near the town of Rashid in the Nile Delta. It had apparently been built into a very old wall. The officer in charge, Pierre-François Bouchard, realized the importance of the discovery. On Napoleon's defeat, the stone became the property of the British under the terms of the Treaty of Alexandria, along with other antiquities that the French had found. The stone was shipped to England and arrived in Portsmouth on February of 1802. When it was discovered, no one knew how to read ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs, but because the inscriptions say the same thing in 3 different scripts, and scholars could still read ancient Greek, the Rosetta Stone became a valuable key to deciphering. Soon after the end of the 4th century AD, when hieroglyphs had, gone out of use, the knowledge of how to read and write them just disappeared. But, like I said before, in the early years of the 19th century, scholars were able to use the Greek inscription on the stone as that lovely little translation key. Thomas Young, an English physicist, was one of the first to show that some of the hieroglyphs on the Rosetta Stone wrote the sounds of a royal name, that of Ptolemy. French scholar Jean-François Champollion then realized that hieroglyphs recorded the sound of the Egyptian language. This laid the foundations of our knowledge of ancient Egyptian language and culture. Champollion made a crucial step in understanding ancient Egyptian writing, and he identified the hieroglyphs that were used to write the names of non-Egyptian rulers. Champollion inscribed this copy of the published paper alphabetic hieroglyphs meaning à mon ami Dubois. He then made a second crucial breakthrough, realizing that the alphabetic signs were used not only for foreign names, but also for Egyptian names. Together with his knowledge of the Coptic language, which derived from ancient Egyptian, this allowed him to begin reading hieroglyphic inscriptions fully. After the stone was shipped to England in February of 1802, it was presented to the British Museum by George III in July of that year. So the Rosetta Stone and other sculptures were placed in temporary structures in the museum grounds because the floors were not strong enough to bear their weight. It has been on display in the British Museum since 1802, with only one break to, take a moment. So, go visit it. In second place, we have the graffiti inside the Great Pyramids. In the heart of the city of El Giza stands the Giza Pyramid Complex, also known as the Necropolis. This architectural marvel contains 3 pyramids: the Pyramid of Khafre, the Pyramid of Menkore, and of course, the Great Pyramid of Giza. Although each was created for a different pharaoh, many historians are convinced that their collective design is cohesive and intentional, as the arrangement of these structures is possibly a representation of the Orion constellation. The complex's crown jewel, though, is the Great Pyramid. Most believe that it was erected under the watchful eye of the pharaoh Khufu to be a tomb where the king would complete his transformation into a god in the afterlife. Standing approximately 146.7 meters high and stretching around 234 meters wide, it looms above everything around it. It was assembled from 2.5 million stone blocks, some of which came from over 500 miles away, which is really amazing when you consider that they didn't have the use of wheels at the time, and that construction took only 20 years. Okay, if that sounds like a lot to anyone, try living in Toronto where construction takes that long to renovate a single road, and by the time it's done being renovated, workers take so long they have to do it again. Whoever designed and built the pyramids had incredibly detailed knowledge and architectural skill. When completed, the pyramid towered over the city, and its corners aligned almost exactly with the points of a compass. In general, Egyptians often oriented structures to true north quite precisely, likely using stars such as Polaris to orient their work, and the Great Pyramid is no exception. The origins and composition of the Great Pyramid, our oldest wonder of the world and its slightly less famous kin, have long confounded scholars. How did engineers manage to achieve the seemingly impossible feats that building these masterpieces would require? And the truth is, no one knows for sure. While some believe that construction workers may have used large ramps to transport the stones, this theory has been largely disproven, as there is little archaeological evidence to support the claim. Naturally, Naturally, theories arguing that aliens must have constructed the pyramid have come into play. It's true, it would have been difficult for humans to build the pyramids, and there is precious little historical evidence of how they were built. Citing this, as well as the architectural and scientific questions that surround the pyramids, many people, kinda like me, have proposed that aliens came to Earth in ancient times and helped kickstart civilizations. According to these theories, the aliens were instrumental in helping ancient Egyptians build their masterpieces. Believers like us argue that in order to design the pyramids as they are, one would need a bird's eye view, the kind that could be provided from, say, a flying saucer. They also believe that in order to create an object that obeys the so-called golden ratio, a mathematical relationship based on the special number of phi, the Egyptians would have needed help from outside sources. The alien theory has persisted to the present day. For example, in 2001, Russian scientist Dr. Vico Ivanovich claimed that the KGB had found ancient alien remains inside the Great Pyramid. Okay, come on. The Great Pyramid's inner network of shafts, passageways, and chambers is so intricate that it's hard to, not to understand why people believed that some kind of divinity or superintelligence was involved. Also, the only hieroglyphs inside are graffiti, alleged to be left behind by those who worked on the structure as a signature, which only further supports my theory on the aliens only knowing that to communicate with us by. Like time capsules, the pyramids are physical symbols of ancient wisdom, made of glittering golden limestone and always remaining around a cool 20 degrees centigrade inside. They provide glimpses of an ancient society that once neared the kind of technological intelligence we possess today. Hey, maybe in 2,000 years, historians will speculate about the extraterrestrial origins of our fallen civilization. And then by then, they'll be able to consult aliens for help. And in first place, we have Stonehenge. So, the mystery of Stonehenge has baffled historians for centuries. One of the never-ending questions about the ancient site is whether or not it contains hieroglyphs. And in 2015, a scientific paper was published by mathematician Dr. A.E. Zlobin in the form of a diary. He discovered Egyptian hieroglyphs in Stonehenge and determined the site as the solar Egyptian temple of the god Atum. There are several other theories that suggest that the site may have been used to record messages or a story. One theory suggests that the stones themselves may have been carved with hieroglyphics. This theory is based on the fact that many other ancient sites, such as the pyramids of Egypt, were decorated with hieroglyphs. Another theory suggests that the stones may have been used as a giant sundial, with the hieroglyphics acting as a way to record the movements of the sun. This theory is supported by the fact that Stonehenge is aligned with the movements of the sun and moon. Whatever the true purpose of it is clear that the site was of great importance to the ancient people who built it. Speaking of which, who built that thing and why did they build it? Napalitano, as it is now known, is not easily accessible. It is thought that the stones are among the oldest astronomical alignments of megaliths in the world. They were built by a nomadic society in the early centuries of Stonehenge, and it is possible that they were built by an ancient civilization. Also, the tomb there was only filled with cattle bones, which is pretty unusual. My theory, and ergo why it made today's list, is that the anomalies point more towards alien advanced communication instead of isolated humans. Also, there haven't really been signs of human life, only cattle like I mentioned before, which supports my theory. And not to sound like a broken record today, but if there's something I can't leave out, there are things we as humans, can't explain. It furthers my theory that one of the languages aliens can use to communicate with, and the reason they don't visit, more now compared to in history, is because of how much we can no longer communicate with them now that it's not a regularly used language.
Starting off with number 5, the WOW signal. In 1977, one of the earliest systematic quests for intelligent life beyond Earth nearly struck gold. It was then that the Big Ear radio telescope stationed at Ohio State University detected a startlingly intense signal that bore the hallmarks of being artificial. The signal's intensity outstripped ambient noise by 30-fold and distinguished from naturally occurring radio sources like quasars. It was confined to a single frequency within the radio spectrum, and astronomer Jerry Eman was the first to spot this while perusing the data and scribbled "wow" next to the abrupt numerical increase, which later became known as the WOW signal. Supporters of the SETI program quickly speculated that the signal had originated from an extraterrestrial entity. But Eman himself wasn't as convinced. Despite numerous attempts to redetect the signal by aiming radio telescopes towards the same region, the WOW signal was never heard again. With only white noise being received, numerous theories about its source have been proposed, yet its true origin remains a mystery. In the search for intelligent life beyond Earth, the WOW signal has become a topic of fascination and debate. Some believe it to be proof of otherworldly beings attempting to communicate with us, while others argue that it was simply a fluke or natural occurrence. This intriguing event continues to spark discussions and research within the scientific community. One theory suggests that the signal may have been emitted by a passing comet or other celestial body, as this could explain the brief and intense nature of the signal. Others believe that it could have been a military transmission from Earth or even a prank. However, these explanations do not fully satisfy the peculiar characteristics of the WOW signal. Another possibility is that the signal was indeed sent by an extraterrestrial intelligence, but was only detectable for a short period of time before fading away. This could be due to the movement or rotation of the alien source, making it difficult for Earth-based telescopes to redetect the signal. Regardless of its true nature, the WOW signal remains one of the most significant events in the history of SETI and continues to fuel our curiosity about the possibility of intelligent life beyond our planet. With advancements in technology and ongoing efforts in the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, perhaps one day we will uncover the truth behind this mysterious signal. Until then, the WOW signal serves as a reminder of the vastness and mysteries of the universe and our never-ending quest to understand it. So let us continue our pursuit in the search for intelligent life and remain open to the unknown possibilities that lie ahead. Who knows, maybe one day we'll receive another WOW signal or make contact with an advanced civilization from a distant corner of the cosmos. Until then, let us keep exploring and pushing the boundaries of what we know about our place in the universe. No matter what the future holds, the WOW signal will always hold a special place in our quest for understanding and discovering what lies beyond our world. It serves as a reminder that the search for extraterrestrial life is an ongoing journey filled with exciting possibilities and endless curiosity. And who knows what other surprises await us as we continue to explore the vast expanse of space. Number 4, first interstellar object in the solar system. In 2017, a historic confirmation was made by astronomers, the first ever detection of an object whizzing past the sun that originated outside of our own solar system. This foreign celestial body was given the name Oumuamua, a Hawaiian phrase translating to a messenger from afar arriving first. Oumuamua, distinctively cigar-shaped, reflected light at a rate tenfold compared to the asteroids in our solar system. Intriguingly, as it distanced itself from the sun, it sped up instead of slowing down, a phenomenon that contradicted the anticipated physical trajectory calculations. These anomalies led A.V. Loeb, a Harvard University astrophysicist, to speculate that the object could have been artificially made by extraterrestrial beings. He proposed in an article that Oumuamua might be a spaceship propelled by an alien-engineered mechanism. However, his theory was met with skepticism by other astronomers who argued that the observations of Oumuamua can be explained by natural processes. In the years following its discovery, Oumuamua has continued to fascinate scientists and the public alike. Its unique characteristics have prompted further research into its origins and possible explanations for its unusual behavior. One of the most interesting aspects of Oumuamua is its trajectory through our solar system. Based on its speed and direction, astronomers were able to trace back its path and determine that it came from the direction of the star Vega in the constellation Lyra. This suggests that Oumuamua has been traveling through interstellar space for millions, if not billions of years before encountering our solar system. While some have dismissed Loeb's theory as far-fetched, others believe that it is a valid possibility. The idea of extraterrestrial life and intelligent civilizations has long been a subject of fascination and speculation, and the discovery of Oumuamua only adds fuel to this ongoing debate. In addition to its potential alien origins, Oumuamua also provides valuable insights into our own solar system. Studying its composition and behavior can help us better understand how objects from other star systems interact with our own and potentially shed light on the formation and evolution of our own solar system. On top of that, Oumuamua serves as a reminder that we are not alone in the vastness of space. As technology advances and we continue to explore beyond our own planet, it is possible that we may encounter more objects like Oumuamua in the future, and who knows what other mysteries and possibilities may await us in the great beyond. So while the true nature of Oumuamua may never be fully known, its presence has sparked important discussions and opened our minds to the endless possibilities of the universe. As we continue to delve deeper into the mysteries of outer space, let us remain open-minded and curious about what we may find. Who knows, maybe one day we will find definitive proof of extraterrestrial life or even encounter another Oumuamua-like object. The possibilities are endless. Number 3, life in the clouds of Venus. The detection of phosphine gas within Venus's cloud cover has caused some disquiet among the scientific community. On our planet, this gas, known for its disagreeable odor similar to spoiled fish, is typically produced by microorganisms. Although Venus's surface is far too inhospitable to support life, the conditions within its clouds may be conducive to microorganisms microbial existence. This finding, however, sparked debate when an independent reevaluation revealed inaccuracies in the original data. NASA attempted to verify the presence of this gas in Venus's atmosphere, but subsequent investigations failed to detect any signs of phosphine. The discovery of phosphine gas in Venus's atmosphere has opened up discussions about the potential for microbial life on the planet. Phosphine, a gas typically produced by microorganisms on Earth, was detected in Venus's cloud cover by a team of researchers. However, this finding was met with skepticism when it was revealed that there were inaccuracies in the data used to make the discovery. As a result, NASA conducted further investigations but could not find any evidence of phosphine in Venus's atmosphere. Despite the setback, the possibility of microbial life on Venus remains intriguing. Scientists have long hypothesized about the potential for life beyond Earth and have turned their attention towards our neighboring planets in the solar system. And while Mars has been the primary focus of research due to its more Earth-like conditions, the discovery of phosphine on Venus has shifted the spotlight towards this mysterious planet. One of the main reasons why Venus is often overlooked as a potential location for life is due to its harsh surface conditions. With temperatures hot enough to melt lead and crushing atmospheric pressure, it seems impossible for any form of life to survive on the planet's surface. However, the atmosphere of Venus is a different story. Despite being mostly carbon dioxide and sulfuric acid, its upper clouds have relatively mild temperatures and atmospheric pressure, making it a more hospitable environment for microbial life to potentially thrive. Scientists are now exploring the possibility that Venus may have once had oceans similar to those on Earth. The planet's thick atmosphere could have kept it warm enough for liquid water to exist on its surface, creating a potential environment for life to develop. While it is still unknown what exactly caused the drastic change in Venus's climate, this new discovery of phosphine gas has opened up more questions and possibilities for the planet. On top of the search for microbial life, studying Venus's atmosphere can provide valuable insight into our own planet's climate. Venus is often referred to as Earth's evil twin due to its similar size and location in the solar system, but with such vastly different conditions on the surface. By understanding how Venus's atmosphere evolved into what it is today, scientists can gain a better understanding of the factors that contribute to habitability on the planetary scale. Number 2, fast radio bursts. In the vast expanses of deep space, mysterious and immensely potent radio wave bursts are being detected. These fast radio bursts, FRBs, varying from fleeting milliseconds to regular rhythmic patterns, were first identified in 2007, perplexing the scientific community since. Most astronomers researching FRBs lean towards attributing them to natural phenomena, but Loeb is unabashed in proposing that their origin could be tied to extraterrestrial technology. It's worth noting that one such FRB was recently confirmed to have originated from a magnetar, a highly magnetized deceased star. In the past decade, there has been a surge in the study of fast radio bursts, short-lived but powerful bursts of radio waves that originate from deep space. These mysterious signals have sparked much debate among scientists and researchers, with many theories being proposed to explain their origin. One such theory, put forth by Harvard astronomer Avi Loeb, suggests that FRBs may be the result of advanced extraterrestrial civilizations. This theory has garnered both praise and criticism, with some arguing that it is a far-fetched idea while others believe it warrants further investigation. However, many scientists caution against jumping to conclusions and suggest that more research is needed to fully understand FRBs. Some have proposed alternate explanations, such as magnetars, highly magnetized deceased stars, as a potential source of these bursts. Regardless of their origin, the study of FRBs continues to be an active area of research in astrophysics. With new technologies and advancements in our understanding of the universe, it is possible that we may one day unravel the mystery behind these enigmatic signals. Until then, their existence remains a captivating and intriguing piece of the ever-expanding puzzle of our universe. So even though the origin of FRBs may still elude us, it's clear that they are a valuable source of knowledge and wonder for humanity to explore. Whether or not we ever discover their true origin, the existence of fast radio bursts serves as a reminder of the vastness and complexity of our universe. And while some may see FRBs as potential evidence of extraterrestrial life, others view them as a testament to the remarkable capabilities of natural phenomena. Whatever the case may be, one thing is for certain: fast radio bursts will continue to capture the curiosity and imagination of scientists and astronomers and all those who seek to unravel the mysteries of our universe. And finally, number 1, euphoria from Viking. In 1976, NASA engineer Gilbert Levine was a part of the Viking missions team, which successfully managed to land a spacecraft on Mars' surface to probe for signs of life. Years later, in 2019, he penned an article in Scientific American asserting his ongoing belief that the data gathered during his experiment signaled the existence of life on Mars. The instrument identified certain elements in the Martian soil samples suggestive of microbial respiration. However, the mission could not find any organic matter to substantiate these findings. In response to Levine's 2019 assertions, NASA spokesman Allard Boydell stated, "The vast majority of the scientific community does not consider the Viking experiment's findings to constitute the extraordinary evidence necessary to support such extraordinary claims." This was likely a reference to Carl Sagan's renowned dictum regarding any potential extraterrestrial discovery. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. In the decades since the Viking mission, NASA has continued to search for evidence of life on Mars. The Curiosity rover, which landed on the Red Planet in 2012, has been conducting experiments and collecting data to shed light on this mystery. The discovery has led scientists to speculate that there could be a liquid water reservoir beneath the Martian surface, potentially providing suitable conditions for microbial life.
Number 5, an Air Force landing cover-up. So, Quinn Nelson, who wants his location to stay private out of fear for his safety, knew a girl whose dad was stationed at an Air Force base in his state. At the time, there were 2 Air Force bases and 1 Marine Air Station, so he feels pretty comfortable making the story known with those details. Quinn says he went to go see the girl and stay with her family over a weekend, arriving on the Friday, just in time for family dinner. He and the girl decided to walk over to the base movie theater to enjoy some private time, and afterwards were walking back to the family's quarters in the company of many Air Force fellow, tweens and families who also saw the movie. He said that as they were walking, Air Force Air Police personnel began driving down the base housing streets, ordering the theater goers to the nearest base housing residence. A siren or tone was wailing from somewhere, along with a code being repeated that Quinn refuses to name for, safety. The crowd didn't put up any kind of resistance and began moving where they were directed, as if this was a normal occurrence, something Quinn observed as being weird to him, but he wasn't going to be the only one putting up a fuss. When the group he was walking with arrived at a house, his girlfriend, without knocking, just pushed the door open and they all walked in. Quinn said the members of the household were pulling the window drapes closed, setting out folding chairs, offering water, acting like this was like a planned gathering instead of a random occurrence in panic. About an hour or so later, the air police again went up and down the streets giving the all clear, and somewhere the same siren or tone was sounding. Later that night, his girlfriend's family told him he must never tell anyone about what had happened on the base, saying that this was an occurrence that would happen when UFOs would land on base property or nearby, something that was apparently very common on Air Force bases. Anyone want to let me know in the comments section if that's true? Because consider me intrigued. Number 4, a gray alien abduction. Grant Rollins, a resident of suburban Maryland, describes himself as a fairly normal bachelor, living in peace until this all went down in December of 2017. He woke up at 1:30 in the morning to the sound of a break-in and went to the bedroom door to confront the intruder, but was suddenly rendered unconscious as he touched the doorknob. He woke up naked and cold in a pill-shaped glass container. The lid was open, so he was able to stumble out onto the floor around the container, and described feeling sluggish and barely able to walk. But he thought he'd been kidnapped, so he was urgently trying to find an escape route. The room he was in was made of mostly concrete and was plastic with fluorescent lights. He managed to limp into a hallway that was tunnel-shaped and followed a blue glow coming from down the hall. As he walked, he came out of the tunnel and entered a large cylindrical room lined with vehicles on hooks along the walls. They were human vehicles, so mostly Japanese and German cars and motorcycles, but some vehicles were clearly from the American military. In the center of the room was what looked like a metal tree that was 6 stories tall with glowing blue leaves. Now as Grant stumbled closer, he realized the tree was actually a large metal cylinder, and the leaves were capsules similar to the one he'd woken up in, except these still had people inside them and were radiating a neon blue glow. As he paid more attention to higher up in this tree, Grant noticed some blue wires moving around in the dark area towards the ceiling. These clumps of wires suddenly floated down towards him and turned to reveal that they had faces in them, each with 2 large dark eyes and narrow slits for noses and mouths. He's compared them in appearance to the typical gray alien face from popular media, with 2 of the faces frowning and 1 smiling. Grant passed out once again, waking up later face down in a puddle of his own drool on a glass floor. He was too tired to get up and barely able to tilt his head up just enough to take a look around. The room was circular, about 150 square feet in size, and a bright, sterile white color. One of the tentacled creatures was in the room, but was busy facing away and operating a set of strange controls with no buttons or levers. Out of exhaustion, Grant's head fell back down, and through the glass floor saw that they had risen out of a deep black hole that was dug into a grassy plain where a rock-shaped lid closed around the hole to cover it. This is when he realized he was in a spacecraft and had actually been in a silo of some sort that's here on Earth somewhere. Grant passed out for the last time and was awoken by the sensation of being dropped back head first onto his bed with a hard thud. He checked his phone for the time and saw that it was around 6:30 in the morning. Later that day, he found an object that had been inserted and cauterized into his right leg and experienced a run-in with some men in black suits within 4 days of the abduction. Grant claims that he never believed in abductions, UFOs, men in black, anything out of the ordinary before that day, but now he doesn't have a choice in the matter and is annoyed that there's no official place to get legitimate information or help on the subject. I'm hoping that after talking about this, I don't see any men in black on my way home today. Number 3, the Voronezhsky abduction. So 34-year-old Vladimir Voronezhsky and his wife 29-year-old Olga were at home with their very young son Arthur and their daughters Vanessa and Angelica one night. Olga had asked the daughters to run an errand, and while returning home, both saw an unusual object in the sky, rushed home, and told their family that they had seen a flying star. When the adults went outside, they saw a distant hovering object in the sky that seemed to move and change shapes. Olga managed to take a photo of the object with her cell phone, but the photo only shows a yellow spot or elongated strip with a black background. The family went back inside, had supper, and went to bed. And while I would love to end this here, y'all know better about how this is about to go. At around 2 a.m., Vladimir suddenly awoke and saw that the whole room was lit by a whitish violet light, and tried to wake Olga, but she refused to wake up, so he went back to sleep. The bright lights woke up their youngest daughter Angelica, who ran to wake her mother, so Olga eventually did wake up, saw what the other two had seen, and then woke Vladimir back up. He was amazed to see that the ceiling of the room had apparently disappeared or become totally transparent. Now, right above them, instead of the ceiling, they could see the open sky and a huge disc-shaped craft hovering right above. Vladimir and Olga ran outside their home, still in their PJs, and could see a hovering disc-shaped UFO emitting the strong lights about 100 feet away. Olga began floating, zooming upwards in a spiral motion, and when Vladimir tried grabbing her legs, he discovered he couldn't control his body. Olga described feeling nauseous, unable to control her body as well. In a state of shock, the couple found themselves teleported inside a room with transparent walls and no furniture. Moments later, the duo witnessed 12 entities enter. The humanoids were short, around 4 feet tall, having 3 fingers on each hand and large heads with smooth gray skin. Now, Vladimir didn't notice any mouths, noses, or ears on them, but noticed their large, black, pupilless eyes. The entities had no visible legs and were moving around like caterpillars. They wore a completely sealed, tight-fitting coverall with masks and hoods that covered their bodies. Only one of the aliens was taller than the rest, easily over 6 feet tall, and stood behind the other small humanoids, with his face not being visible under his outfit. The short entities approached Olga first, placing her in a deep armchair which resembled a gynecologist chair, prompting Vladimir, who was now unfrozen, to attempt to rush towards her, but he ran into an invisible wall or force field. 2 of the aliens approached him now, and he asked, what's going on? And they reassured him telepathically that soon you will be back home. Oh yeah, nothing to be afraid of. Vladimir became rightfully angry and attempted to push the aliens away, but was thwarted by more entities grabbing him in an attempt to restrain him. The aliens asked him why he resisted, staring straight into his eyes each time they communicated, telepathically, before inserting 4 metallic rods into his chest area, paralyzing him completely. From that moment on, he was unable to move, and could only stand there helplessly and watch the aliens experiment on Olga. Somehow they were able to cut into her stomach without her noticing, or using any kind of known surgical instruments. She sensed the smell of her inner organs, feeling unpleasant, but no pain, only tranquility and relaxation. And modern human medicine could apparently stand to learn a thing or two. The aliens seemed to be taking samples from her body and organs, and were apparently now using different instruments to study the organs inside her abdomen. Olga was only able to describe that one looked like a pair of pincers and had 3 clamps. After the strange procedures, the aliens closed and sewed up her stomach. Before the abduction, Olga had been bothered by stomach pains, but after that day, she never suffered from them again. Apparently, the aliens were more interested in communicating with Vladimir, explaining to him that the female is the entity in a stage less developed than the male entity, which I'll beg to differ. The smaller humanoids respectively called the taller humanoid by a word that Vladimir has loosely translated as the professor, who explained to Vladimir that their society was like a huge ant colony. After Vladimir was brought in front of the professor, he asked the entity why they had taken him and his wife, with the taller being answering that it had to be done. Both witnesses understood that having such feelings was, the central interest of the aliens. The tall alien said, we don't understand you. Why haven't you, intelligent animals, destroyed yourselves yet? How can you survive with your emotions? He said that there was a space war going on at that time in the universe, and that the entity that we call God has implanted much information into Earth and the waters of it. Those who are against God, want that information destroyed. If the Earth is going to be destroyed, the Son of God would arrive to Earth again and will restore everything living it. Well, I think I've heard that story before. Through the transparent surface of the cabin, the duo could see the planet Earth approaching and felt that their spacecraft was slowing down. The couple was returned then back to Earth the very same way they were abducted. First in the smaller module, and then the large disc-shaped craft, and then through the roof of their home inside a beam of light. At 11 a.m. the next morning, Vladimir and his wife awoke, and a while passed before they talked about what had occurred. But after analyzing the mutual identical memories, they understood that what had happened happened had not been a dream but reality. The whole family underwent extensive medical tests to see if the aliens had left behind any implants and to try and find any traces of surgery. By some mysterious manner, Vladimir lost his gray hairs, and his physical powers of endurance increased after the abduction. Olga was cured of her chronic colitis and gained the ability to make a drunken man sober by placing the palm of her hand on the man's forehead for 2 to 3 minutes. It's a pretty neat ability, but I'm not sure I want to undergo testing for it. Number 2. Lizard beings from Colorado. Back in 1968, Hannah and her family were living in a small town in the west end of Montrose County called Uravan, Colorado. One early summer morning, she was awakened by the barking of the family dog named Tippy outside her bedroom window, which was unusual for the pup, who usually only barked when someone or something was in a yard that wasn't supposed to be. Hannah remembers waking up out of a deep sleep and hearing Tippy constantly barking and wondering why her older brother, who slept in the bunk above her, and her parents sleeping in the bedroom on the other side of the wall, weren't telling Tippy to quit it. So finally, Hannah was fed up and decided to turn over in bed and look out the window, and was met with a sight she didn't believe at first. There it was, a small circular ship with its landing gear down and a hatch with stairs folded down to the ground. Next to the ship were green lizard-like beings with bright yellow eyes, webbed hands that resembled a bow and arrow, and had some sort of tanks on their back. They had thin bodies, were covered in scales, and had V-shaped toes. According to Hannah, the overall mood was that these beings were searching for something, but she had no guesses as to what. Another alien exited the ship, but it was much larger in size than the others and seemed to be giving out orders. This caused Tippy to begin barking aggressively again, upsetting the aliens who began to approach the dog. Hannah instinctively jumped off her bed and rushed into her parents' room in an attempt to wake her mom, but struggled. Her mom slept as if something was wrong, and when she finally awoke was incredibly sluggish in movement. Hannah explained what was going on outdoors and her concern for Tippy, but the mom was unable to see the creatures and wanted to just go back to sleep. Hannah's mom eventually also told her to, sleep away from the window, and before she fell back asleep, she remembers seeing 2 of the lizard beings looking in her room through the window and no longer hearing any noise from Tippy. When morning came, Hannah rushed outdoors in her PJs to, check on her beloved pet, and Tippy was waiting like nothing had happened. The occurrence was never discussed between Hannah and her mom again until shortly before her mom's passing in 2016, when she asked Hannah if she remembered seeing the lizard people and their ship in their yard in Colorado. Creepy. Number 1. 7 donuts in the sky. On May 19th of 1952, an aircraft flying an RB-36 aircraft reported spotting a series of several donut shapes appearing in the sky, and were able to take photographs to accompany their incident report, which can be found in National Archives. The crew of 22 reported flying just south of Sonora when they originally spotted the phenomenon, stating that the plane was headed on a 301 degree heading at 18,000 feet, which with relatively calm winds for that altitude. At 8:05 p.m., the objects appeared just to the left of the plane's nose at a range estimated by the crew to be 80 to 120 kilometers ahead. The objects were stacked vertically from approximately 25 to 60,000 feet, and even with all the photographs and drawings, there is still no definite answer as to what was spotted. Alrighty folks, so we're gonna start today off with the son of a man who once ripped a bat's head off with his teeth. None other than Jack Osbourne. Hey look, if you're the offspring of Ozzy and Sharon, I'm assuming you've seen some wild stuff in your time, and ergo might be better at telling the supernatural apart from simply out of the ordinary. So in his show, Jack Osbourne's Night of Terror, UFOs, which is a long title, but whatever, the star teamed up with a couple of his buddies, and since I feel like being a name dropper, Jason Mewes and Jamie Kennedy, with the trio heading off to Utah's Uinta Basin, where the notoriously creepy and mysterious Sherman Ranch sits. Yes, it has another name as well, no, I will not be saying it out of respect. The area has long been known for its otherworldly and unexplainable activity. The 500 acres of isolated land are located between Ballard and Vernal in Utah. Now, the Sherman family acquired the ranch way back in the 1990s. I thought I'd be funny there. And local myths have haunted the region though for centuries, before and afterwards. Now, before the Sherman family inhabited the ranch, the spot was known as UFO Alley, and the Desert News reported that in 1978, nearby residents had spotted a dome-shaped UFO over the ranch that was surrounded by a glowing green light. The family reported doorways of light appearing in mid-air, cattle that vanished, animals mutilated on their property, crop circle-like patterns in the surrounding fields, unidentified flying objects or orbs, and invisible objects emitting destructive magnetic fields. While investigating the disappearance of cattle, one man reportedly saw a large beast, like a wolf but bigger, harassing cattle near the ranch. The man fired an explosive at the creature that hit its intended target, but the creature didn't slow down and appeared to escape unscathed. In recent years, residents of the area have reported seeing strange lights both in the sky and close to the ground, and creatures and shapeshifters manifesting and then disappearing before their eyes. So, let's bring in our guys, shall we? They were joined by UFO expert and former FBI agent Ben Hansen, and they wanted to attempt to figure out if all these phenomena were connected, and also why is all this crazy activity concentrated in that specific area. And hey, I love a good hotspot story, so let's indulge this one. According to Jack, he's been obsessed with the concept of whether or not we're alone since he was like really young and used to stare up at the stars in the sky at night. Hey, I still do it. Now this area in particular has fascinated him for years because it is a mecca for alien and supernatural activity. To quote him, people are drawn for specific things, but when you come here looking for it, you ought to find something you're not looking for. I've never been to any place like this and it's its own realm. Alrighty. So thankfully, Hansen brought a grounded and thorough understanding and knowledge, about UFOs to the table, whereas Jack's buddies were responsible for the comedy relief. You know what, Kennedy confessed, I'm okay if I see an alien along the way, as long as it doesn't mess me up. Okay, nobody tell him about Betty and Barney Hill, or anything else I ever talk about on here. So on the second night of their investigation, powerful lightning ripped through the area. Jack even said, it's like something doesn't want us to be here. And there was more than a little indication that he was right. Is this where I say, no SHIT, Sherlock? So he decided, you know what, I'm gonna try the night vision goggles. Always a fun little gadget. And that's when Jack saw something really odd trekking very quickly through the desert. Upright like a human, but then it just vanished. To quote him, I swear to God, I effing just saw an S-walker. And we got it on effing tape, dude, which was what he told its producer, referring to, the shape-shifting witch of legend that morphs into various animals, like wolves or bears. And the evidence didn't stop there, leaving them convinced that the area was a supernatural melting pot, which, obviously. Moving along, we've got out of this world level security. Look, I guess since the US government covers up so much alien and UFO stuff, it makes sense that it could be one of the places aliens are either forced to work at or just work at for safety in our world. There's a saying that the internet never forgets, and that's certainly true of old videos that kind of refuse to die. So this video in particular shows a US Secret Service agent who a lot of us think might be a reptilian shapeshifter. Now this is back from 2013. This is over a decade old now, and it stems from a speech given by former US President Barack Obama at a policy conference, and it was held by a lobbying group known as AIPAC. In the video, conspiracy theorists zoom in on the Secret Service agent and accuse him of being a reptile, saying stuff like, this was the day that the government was caught with a reptilian Secret Service agent in HD and they didn't deny anything, which kind of raises some obvious questions such as, I don't know. If the government was trying to hide its reptilian agents, why put one in a highly visible position at a televised event? If reptilians are capable of shapeshifting to look like humans, why not just shapeshift into something less obvious, like a table, or a chair, or a microphone? Do shapeshifting reptilians get full pay and benefits, similar to government employees? Look, while this might be considered a conspiracy theory, I looked at the footage myself, I believe it, and also, with the hours that Secret Service must have to keep, it makes sense that a more advanced race would be best in charge of protection guidelines. Now, I did read a story published by Wired way back when, and there was a quote from Caitlin Hayden, spokeswoman for the National Security Council, in which she refers to the budget cuts at the time, saying, I can't confirm the claims made in this video, but any alleged program to guard the president with aliens or robots would likely have to be scaled back or eliminated in the sequester. I'd refer you to the Secret Service or Area 51 for more details. I guess alien guards got a raw deal during the sequester. Now, the White House didn't clarify if its reptilian Secret Service agents are subject to the furloughs without pay that were affecting federal employees at the time. That might have prevented Obama from falling into the clutches of an intergalactic conspiracy, which, who knows, maybe the president was in on it from the start. One theorist claims that he literally looked for the video everywhere and couldn't find it. The only place it existed now was Reddit. So if the government was trying to hide the video, it's doing a really bad job. This theory's been floating around for years. I'm not the first one to say it, I won't be the last. Also, one of the more prominent promoters was David Icke. So this whole thing is pretty sure that this race of reptilians is secretly controlling the world, pulling the strings in major human atrocities. Now, David, who is English, has been barred from holding events in countries like the Netherlands and Germany because of his theories. I don't know, folks. What do you think? I saw the footage. I think it's real. Okie doke. So now we're in the middle of the pack, and this one is my personal favorite footage, I think, ever. Right here, on the interwebs, I declare Melania Trump is a shapeshifter. Does anybody else remember back in 2017 to 2020 when Donald Trump was in office and videos of Melania looking a little off took over the internet? Specifically, the first hashtag fake Melania seems to have landed on October 13th of 2017 when a video of Donald and Melania in a news segment was uploaded to Facebook by Andy Wagner. So in the segment, Trump was talking to reporters when he mentioned Melania, who happens to be right here, he said. He gestured to the Melania-esque sort of looking woman in sunglasses next to him, and she didn't say anything, but she does a lot of nodding. So a couple days later, Wagner put it on YouTube, then she tweeted about it a few times, and then it went viral, and now, fake Melania. So after that went viral, Stephanie Grisham, the First Lady's communications director, went on CNN to do some damage control, saying that, once again, we find ourselves consumed with a ridiculous non-story when we could be talking about the work the First Lady is doing, including the opioid crisis that is gripping the nation. Good attempt at taking the conversation in another direction, but I took PR in university. try better. Here's my theory. What if Melania is an alien shapeshifter and the photos and videos caught her on an off day where she wasn't at full power? Similar to Superman, maybe there's something in our universe that acts as like a kryptonite of sorts for her, which is why she's so reclusive in her ways. Fake Melania kind of put the First Lady's reserved approach to her post in the East Wing under a magnifying glass. She stayed in New York City with her son for the first 5 months of Trump's term, and rarely gave public comment in the first 2 years, which is a good way to avoid scrutiny from eagle-eyed folks looking for proof of alien DNA. A source close to Melania claimed that she wasn't really keen on being in the White House, and she even disappeared from public life for weeks. Maybe she was visiting alien relatives. Eventually, her office attributed the absence to a kidney ailment. So even though the White House tried to bury all of this, the meme came back one more time when Trump and his wife visited Alabama. And then, a couple days afterwards, was spiking. Eventually it settled. Eventually, Trump had to weigh in on Twitter and said, "The fake news photoshopped pictures of Melania then propelled my conspiracy theories that it's actually not her by my side in Alabama and other places." Hey, maybe that's why Trump's so batty. He's around alien tech all the time. Ever tried that on for size? Alright, next up, one has to ask, do aliens rule the world? Look, I've already talked about possible aliens in the White House. It's not that much of a stretch to guess that maybe part of the royal family might be of alien descent. May the former Queen of England absolutely rest in peace, but honest to goodness, I don't think anybody lives that long without having some sort of secret. So if you look closely at the video in question, particularly at the Queen's eyes, something is just a little off. Being in power for 70 years without slipping up in one's disguise is a feat I absolutely commend her for. But at the same time, after that faux pas, she retreated more and more from public events, probably to protect her identity. Look, I'm not the only one with this theory, and I know it. There's quite the popular theory out there that Draconian Martians are a superior race of being, and over time they've traveled to Earth and either organically become our leaders or replace those already in charge to lead up to their end goal, whatever it may be. And before somebody says that's far-fetched, similar tales exist all throughout history, dating back to fairies and changelings, which is honestly something I also believe in. And I'm guessing you do too, or else you wouldn't be here. Alrighty folks, so I'm gonna end today's list with what might be a controversial take, so bear with me here. What if I told you that on a remote ranch in Oaxaca, Mexico, a farmer named Roman Ochoa claims to have witnessed something really nuts? So let's just picture this right now. It's not like all the other footage today. This mysterious creature, neither fully man nor beast, seemingly caught in the act. So Roman is the owner of the Ojo de Agua Ranch and has a tale that kind of is a mixture of mythology, werewolf folklore, but you've got a bit of a dash of extraterrestrial intrigue, which is why it fit this list. He swears by the existence of naguals, beings believed to have the ability to transform into their spirit animals. In this case though, it's not just a run-of-the-mill shapeshifting scenario. It's a man morphing into a werewolf, and happening right on his ranch. Now according to Roman, the man in question didn't stumble upon this extraordinary power by accident. And it's not a curse, not a magical mishap. The werewolf abilities were bestowed upon this individual by an alien. Yeah, so an extraterrestrial entity allegedly granted the power of metamorphosis to this unsuspecting earthling, ergo, alien shapeshifter. Now let's talk about the evidence. We do have a picture capturing the transformation in progress. The creature in question, halfway between man and werewolf, stands on all fours, paws eerily resembling human feet. Imagine being inches away from such a spectacle, and despite the proximity, Roman insists that the ranch workers remained unharmed. How's that for a close encounter? Look, the implications are staggering. After everything I've talked about today, shape-shifting aliens granting extraordinary powers to humans in our world? Are we witnessing the intersection of ancient mythologies and extraterrestrial inventions? Who knows? Maybe I should go visit that ranch.